Welcome to the Homegrown Podcast, a place where we share the truth about food and farming from our kitchen to yours. I'm your host, Liz Haselmayer, along with my husband,
Good
Joey.
morning.
And together we hope to inspire, educate, and equip you in your pursuit of true nourishment. Today we are sitting down with Max Kane, the founder and owner of farmmatch.com. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard us say farmmatch.com is your best place to get connected with a local farmer. No, it's not a dating website, although sometimes people are like, what is that? And so we're excited to sit down with Max today and chat all things local food, getting connected to your farm, environment, all the topics that Joey and I love to cover. So welcome.
It's kind of like a dating website, but just not for a relationship.
Yeah, I guess you could
It's for having
producer consumer
nourishment.
relationship.
It's for nourishment,
Sure.
right?
You're gonna hook you up with some food. You're gonna date your food.
Yeah.
This is
Your
going
food.
another way already. Well, welcome to the show, Max. We're super excited.
Yeah, thanks. What would that look like? You'd be moving pretty fast with your food if you look
would
at it
not
in
be
that
a
way, you'd be, like
monogamous.
starting off with like a big French kiss or something like that. Right?
I would be going. Yeah, I would be going. Yeah.
Unless you're buying eggs, and there's like, that's weird, right? It's kind of abusive, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't need,
Anyways, welcome to the show, Max.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Liz and Joey. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, we're excited. So I want to, before we dive into some of these topics, like dating your food, let's hear, first of all, a little background on you, Max. I'd love to know kind of how you even got interested in this, and then how you started this amazing platform called Farm Match.
Sure. Dating your food. That sounds like the name of a book that would sell a lot.
Ooh, maybe we'll make it the name of the podcast.
Dating your food. So I grew up in Chicago. When I was about 10 years old, I was diagnosed with degenerative Crohn's disease. I started experiencing just horrific abdominal pain. Sometimes I would be clutched in the fetal position, just trying to deal with the pain, sometimes for 3 days on end. Like,
Wow.
if you can imagine that. And at the time, my parents were getting divorced, and there were a lot of emotional stresses in my life. And so the doctors kind of wrote things off as this is just emotional stress from growing up in a hard life. And then eventually, a year later, they gave me a formal diagnosis at Weiler's Children's Hospital on the south side of Chicago. And with degenerative Crohn's disease, if people aren't aware of that condition, you're basically not really good or efficient at digesting food. And so what that looks like in your life is a lot of food passes through the gut wall undigested, and it goes into different areas of the body and causes weird autoimmune reactions. So you get a lot of joint pain, abdominal pain. It's hard for your body to utilize fats properly. So a lot of people with degenerative Crohn's also have very dry skin. So you could be diagnosed with arthritis and psoriasis and a lot of other conditions and kind of all bundle them into one, but really it comes from the digestion. So at the time, the doctors said, well, I weighed 69 pounds at the time, and was just very thin and emaciated, and they put me on 60 milligrams of prednisone. It's a steroid, not the kind that builds muscle, but sulfasalazine was an anti-inflammatory drug I took at the time. I think I was on 2,000 milligrams of that every day. I think there's like four tablets. I think they're 500 milligrams each. Really big, And so that went on for probably about a year or two, and as I was growing, the new latest and greatest anti-inflammatory drug would come out. So they would taper me off the sulfasalazine and get me on Pentasa and Asacol. And so if you can imagine, from the age of about 10 to the age of 20, it was trying these new remedies because nothing really worked, right? There was no they said, we don't know what the cause is, we don't know what the cure is, but this is an incurable condition, and it's something you're going to have for the rest of your life. And your life is going to be compromised in a way, and you're not going to be able to function like a normal average person.
Wow.
So I went through about 10 years of the paradigm that nothing can be done other than we can treat this with medication. I was put on permanent federal disability with the federal government, and I received a check once a month, a disability check, and all my medical bills were covered. in my early 20s, I had someone very important to me in my life, someone I loved deeply, a very close relationship. And this person was, they were a committed heroin user. I don't like to use the word addict because I think it's disempowering to the person. So they were really committed to using heroin, and they were totally destroying their life. And I saw what was happening in their life, and I would go to them and say like, "Hey, what are you doing? You look at all these terrible outcomes that are resulting from your decisions." And and they would come back with, "You don't understand. I'm addicted. I can't stop." And I was like, "Dude, don't give me that BS. You're getting something out of this. There's something about this that you like. So like be real with that, and see if you can somehow make some choices and meet those needs in your life through different kinds of behavior instead of using the drug." And it turned out down the road, he finally admitted that he was using the heroin to avoid pain, right? He had a different emotional pains and things. But anyway, so I'm driving through the Walgreens drive-through in Brookfield, Illinois, right? And I'm going to get my prescription filled, right? And I had this like aha moment, this like man in the mirror moment, this moment where all of my, all of my preaching, all of my advice, like just came right back to me in the blink of an eye. Like I started hearing these sound bites in my head when I was telling this person what they could do to change their life, how they can be proactive, how they can take responsibility. And I realized that Walgreens was like my drug dealer,
Mm.
right? And I was like the drug addict or committed drug user, and I wasn't taking responsibility for my health at all. I was going to another person, in this case, the doctors, right? And I was saying like, "Hey, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me?" And I never really asked the question, what can I do for myself? Like they're telling me all we have is medication. There's no cure. And I'm accepting that, right? And I never asked, well, like if they can't invent a cure, like why don't I? Like why like who should be more motivated, incentivized for my health success than me? Like why should a doctor care if I'm healthy or not? Like, dude, he wants to have a loving relationship with his wife, maybe make children and kick back on the beach and enjoy the waves and bask in the sunset. I mean, that's what I want to do, right? So why should I deprive him of that and let his mission in life be taking care of my problem? Why don't I make that my mission? So all this, like, I'm giving you this over the course of 3 minutes, but all this, like, in a blink of an eye, just like popped in my head instantly. I don't even know how to explain it other than that. So
Mhm.
anyway, I made a commitment right there and then. I said, "Dude, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take," because I believed in the advice I was giving. I just never applied it to myself, right? And so I like no way to like rationalize and argue with it in my head and say, "No, no, this won't work for me." I was like unconditionally convinced this is going to work for me because I just believe in that advice, right? I believe in taking responsibility. So I started reading books and attending workshops and going to lectures on what you can do for self-care. What does it look like to take responsibility for your health? What behaviors do you need to do? What behaviors do you need to avoid? What does your lifestyle look like? And anyone who um, like looks at the health in that way comes to, there's so much that's been published on it. You easily come to the conclusion that, like what you eat is important, sleeping is important, exercise, avoiding pollution and toxicity, all these things are just like, oh, you could call them like foundations to building good health, right? And for me, food was one of the key foundations I was interested in because in my particular situation, every time I would eat a meal, I experienced terrible abdominal pain, right? And so like years of study and reading books and um, changing my lifestyle, I developed a philosophy on health. And I got, so I ended up, I think it took about, I think it took about 18 months for me really to get to the point where I felt I was in control. I mean, I dove right in on making changes. Like I stopped all the medication cold turkey,
Wow.
right? Against the advice of the doctors. I was just
Yeah.
like, "You can't do this. You don't understand. It's dangerous." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, okay, well." whatever, And so I just started making some like really paramount change, like just huge changes in my life. I was willing to kind of revamp everything, almost if you can imagine taking your whole life and throwing it in the garbage,
Hmm.
saying, I want a whole new life.
What
You
were
know,
some of the things you were implementing like right away?
right away, I started eating raw food direct from farms, particularly raw dairy products,
Mm.
raw goat kefir, or it's actually pronounced kefir. Kefir is the American pronunciation.
Okay,
So
thank
that,
you, because I've always been wondering. Because I say kefir, but then I'm like, am I being like weird? But then I say kefir because I hear other. So it's kefir.
I called it
kefir,
kefir the other day,
yeah,
and every time it comes off the lip, it
It
feels like
feels
I'm.
wrong.
Yeah, it does.
It's kefir, people.
yeah. So I'm like changing my diet. That's one of the main
It's
changes
huge.
I made. And then I moved out of Chicago up to Wisconsin. So I'm in a cleaner, fresher environment.
Hmm.
And if for anyone that lives in a big city, you can achieve really good health in a big city, but you're swimming a little bit upstream because there's more pollution in big cities, right? So if you can imagine all the different things that could be working for your health and working against your health.
Yeah.
Pollution is one of those things that works against your health. Not that you can't achieve good health in a big city, but there are just more things working against you. And I just was like, dude, I'm ready to win like the gold medal for best health in the world, right? Whatever it takes.
Hmm.
So being willing to like leave my friends behind that had unhealthy habits, drinking alcohol, staying up late, like all that stuff, like I don't need to associate with you people. We don't have anything in common,
Yeah.
in moving and just like major shifts like that. You
You
believe it
could.
or not, most people, when you ask them to eat differently, I mean, they think that that alone, just that one thing, it's like, oh my goodness. I mean, like, give it a try sometime. Hey, we can revamp your diet and eat this way, and people are like, I mean, there's a lot of defensiveness and hesitation. Ironically, my friend Brian's wife says everyone's got a religion. It's their diet, you know.
Mm.
So if you want to know what a person's religion is, go look in the refrigerator, and it'll tell
Mm.
you a lot about their beliefs of the world.
I think there's something about asking somebody to change what they eat, and I've experienced this, right? Because Elizabeth kind of helped bring me along to where we are today, and I'd say I was very willing, but there was definitely a few things where I was like, okay, like raw milk, like why is it called raw? It was like it felt gross at first,
Hmm.
which is ridiculous if you really think about it, because it's only called raw because we cook other milk.
Yeah.
It's insanity. It's
Yeah, really, it should just be called milk,
it,
and the other stuff should be called like burnt milk or cooked
Exactly.
milk or something like
it's
that.
Processed milk. Let's
it,
just call it what it is.
Processed milk.
it's so true. And if you look, I mean, we made the comparison on another episode where we said you go into the grocery store and you buy orange juice and it's pasteurized. So does that mean that we're buying raw oranges off
Right.
the table? It's like, so is this a raw orange? And it's hilarious if you think about it, but that's the exact comparison to milking a cow and saying this is currently raw milk.
Right. No one would have any issue eating an orange because it's also sold in liquid form, pasteurized.
It's
They wouldn't be
crazy.
like, "Oh, I can't eat the raw version." It's just, anyways.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah, totally.
what I was like,
There's a lot. That's like a whole nother. Maybe we'll go down
No,
that this podcast,
it's a
but
whole other thing.
what
there's
I
a
was gonna say
lot of,
is
there's
people
a lot
feel
of
personally
miscommunication.
attacked
There's
if you ask them to change their diet, because you're like essentially telling them that they're wrong,
Mm.
right? You're saying, hey, you've been doing something and you've been incorrect or irresponsible, or like I think that's the initial gut feeling, and there's there's this feeling of like of pride that we have of I have it figured out. I've collected information. I've been making the right decisions. And if you say, hey, you should look into this, they're like, no, no.
Yeah. I think, Joy, I think there's so much truth in what you just said. I also think a lot of it has to do with people fear change.
Mm.
We live in a very I mean, there's fear hitting you left and right. And I think people fear change. And so that I think, I mean, there's a few different reasons of why. And people just, especially if you're saying, hey, drink some raw milk, because people fear bacteria as
Mm.
well. That's another big, oh, I'll get sick from that. The authority figures told me so. Studies have confirmed, leading experts agree, all these different, it gets to the point where we can't even think for ourselves anymore, which is silly because in the United States, in our country, we're supposed to have this level of maturity where we can sit on a jury, convict someone to death, like all these things. You can run to be the president. You can, you know what I mean? You can make a
Hmm.
decision when it's okay to drink alcohol and when it's not. I mean, you have all these different, like, very high risk abilities. You're like, it's considered that you have the judgment to weigh all these very high risk situations, right? But when it comes to food, like, you're a complete idiot. Like, we're gonna figure this out for you, and
Mm.
you don't try and wrap your mind around this. It's like way too deep for you,
That's
and
so good. Yeah, I love that. I've never heard those two things compared side by side, but you're so
Yeah, you
right.
can go out and buy cigarettes
yeah,
at 18, but
yeah.
you can't make decisions around
Can't get your own
like
milk, man.
your
And
health, your nutrition.
yeah,
It's
and you can make decisions around alcohol. You can sit on a jury, make decisions around whether or not a murder took place or not, whether someone's guilt or innocent. You can if you can convince people to elect you, you can make decisions for the greater populace through the
Yeah.
electoral process of government. I mean, you can walk around with a gun. How about that?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, so um, so the whole foundation of our country, from a constitutional standpoint, I love political philosophy, by the way, is that the adults, we're supposed to be able to have a certain level, be we're given like a certain level of authority, or it's like the belief is that we can govern ourselves, we can manage ourselves, we can figure it out, and that we don't need other people really telling us how to make decisions for our lives.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain degree, right? Obviously, we do have some laws that say, you shouldn't be able to do this and you shouldn't be able to do that. They're all based on moral premise, like robbing, you can't just go steal someone's stuff and rob them, right? Robbery, you can't rob. Good law, right? However, like, some of the laws now, a lot of them are passed just for financial reasons. This is good for business. It doesn't mean it's good for society. Business isn't always good for society. Making money isn't, you know, I forget her name. There's some artist, I think, from Switzerland. She wrote this song, "You Can't Eat Money."
Mm.
But so getting back to, um, I had this, like, this man in the mirror moment, and then I just kind of went all in on changing my lifestyle, and a part of that, how Farm Ranch was born, is I started going to these farms and eating food fresh from the farm. My health totally turned around. I was able to stop taking all medications. I'm the first person in U.S. history, maybe the only person, I don't know, who voluntarily removed themselves from permanent federal disability. It was a hard procedure to get that done. Like, I called the disability office. I said, "Stop sending checks. I don't need the money anymore." And they're on the phone saying, like, "What?" Like, "Are you okay?" Usually every phone call they get is like, "Oh man, I hurt so bad. Can you put me on disability?" And I'm like the opposite of that. They didn't even know what to do with it, right?
That's so
And
funny.
so I said, "Yeah, I want to stop this. Like, give me the form. Send me the form to fill out." And they're saying, like, there is no form for that. Like, you're just on forever. And I
What?
said, there's a way to do it. So anyway, I had to, like, go up. Once you get to, like, the highest supervisor, then, I had to, like, put in some custom written documentation, and, have it all, like, officially notarized, and certain, and things like that, and send it in. I eventually found a way to get myself removed from it. Um, and I think that was, I don't remember the year. So this is about a 20 year span of my life, from then to now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, and, I put on, I don't even know, 50 or 60 or 70 pounds of healthy athletic weight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in pretty good shape. I'm not an Olympic athlete, but definitely far above um, the average of what's considered healthy, which by the way, we have a very low standard for what's
Mhm.
considered healthy in the United States in the year of 2023.
Yeah.
And this is just like, we don't have a very high standard of what our body should be capable of and how it should function. And so So I started a buying club because I started getting milk for myself and all these fresh farm foods for myself, and then other people in my area saw my health, changing in a positive way, and they're like, "Hey, can we get some of that food?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I started this buying club, and I needed like some technology to help automate things. And then in my like self-education course, because you don't learn this stuff in public school, which is where I went. In my self-education course, I started traveling to farms around the country and trading my time working on the farm, learning from farmers to get like a whole new education of what people used to know, hundreds of years ago, because you grew up that way, right? There was
Hmm.
Mhm.
no formal schooling that said, this is what's important to learn. Like, hundreds of years ago, what are you going to learn? What you need to survive,
Yeah.
right? So I learned to raise food. I became an expert in small regenerative agriculture. At the time, they didn't call it regenerative agriculture, but that's what it was. And and then I saw that there was other farms and buying clubs that needed the same kind of technological software solution as I needed to run my buying club. And that's kind of how Farm Match was formed in a nutshell.
That's so cool. I love that you started the first food that you ate on your healing journey was raw goat's kefir.
Yeah.
Because people are often like, oh, dairy is so inflammatory. It's like the opposite of healing. You
Oh,
went for, well, first of all, it's raw. Second of all, it's fermented because you're talking about kefir.
yeah.
You weren't drinking the straight milk. Did you ever try the milk on its own in the beginning?
I did, but I learned about as I was looking into health, and and there's a total argument on what to eat and what not to eat, what we
Hmm.
should be eating, or the vegetarians say we shouldn't be eating meat. I mean, it's like what is what is food? Like you can debate that forever, right? Um, and it doesn't matter what if you believe in creation or Big Bang or whatever your faith is, if you have a faith or not, the one substance on the planet that is irrefutably, you can't argue, can't that was intended to be food. There's one substance on the planet that was intended to be food that no one can argue about regardless of their faith, and that's milk. All right. Milk, baby's born, milk is produced. Milk is intended to be food.
Yeah, we're
There's
mammals, people. We're
yeah,
mammals.
Mm.
yeah. And even non-mammals, when they have the opportunity, they drink milk. Birds
Mm-hmm.
will lap it, they'll chickens, so so I studied this culture of people that lived in Georgia in, over not the state of Georgia, but Europe and Asia. And there's a culture of people there that drank kefir, this substance kefir, that was a fermented dairy beverage, and they lived near the Caucasus Mountains, and they were called centurions, meaning they all lived into their hundreds,
Mm.
right? So I'm like, dude, well, if I want their results, I got to be doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started researching kefir, and as it turned out, um, Genghis Khan, the Mongolian warrior, him and his team who conquered, so much, so much. Most people don't know. I think Genghis Khan is, I think, the second wealthiest person in recorded history, by the way. But you can't just go kick everyone's butt and take their land unless you have a certain like amount of physical health, right? So all this conquering he did, one of the main beverages that his army ate was fermented mare milk.
Hmm.
Like they're making, kefir out of mare milk. They're fermenting it.
Mm.
So I kind of knew that, as I was reading different books and going to workshops, people with compromised digestion, if you can pre-digest the food, whatever it is, it's supposed to be easier to digest. So milk being the food of intention, it being easier if it's pre-digested in some way,
Mm-hmm.
let's kind of start with that. And there was a lot of books I read and people kind of advocating for raw goat kefir. So, it was something that made sense to me in a lot of ways, and so that was kind of the first food.
I love that.
So, Crohn's disease, or is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Or Crohn's?
Crohn apostrophe S,
Mm-hmm.
named after Dr. Crohn's, right?
Okay.
So, like all these disease labels, the actual label of the disease is totally meaningless.
Yeah.
I mean, the symptoms that you're experiencing is all that really matters, because you could call arthritis, call it ABC disease or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's the same, like it's the same condition. So one actually labeling diseases is in a lot of ways it's really destructive and misleading, and not misleading, but it's like it redirects your focus
Hmm.
on what you should be thinking about. Like if you're sick and you want to heal, dude, just talk about your symptoms. Like I'm experiencing this and this and this, and don't like put those together and bundle them and now call them something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that really doesn't get you anywhere. And in addition to not getting you anywhere, it actually takes your focus off the actual symptoms,
Mhm.
which is what you need to be focused on. If you want to heal, you really need to be focused on like just black and white. What are my symptoms? I got joint pain, rectal bleeding, dry, whatever. You like list them all, right?
Yeah.
And then say, look, how do I make this go away, and not worry about taking this cluster of symptoms and then putting a name on them from some guy that wants to be famous or whatever.
That be that as it may, you were diagnosed with this,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And I guess the question is this something that typically people I don't know, come out of? I think you had said it was a forever thing,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious about kind of where you are today. If you were to go into a doctor today and say, "Hey, this was a diagnosis," would they say? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, if I went into a doctor today, they would probably scope me and not diagnose me and say you're fine, right?
Mm,
But because I experienced this before, they'll say, "Oh, well, you're just in remission."
Yeah,
Like,
that's the
I
key.
have really good life insurance. In order to get the life insurance, I had to go through some medical procedures, and they, check me out and make sure I'm okay and not going to die. And so my guess is that's what doctors would say, and some of them might have different opinions. I don't know. I like to take in people's individuals.
mm,
So some doctors may say that, some doctors might not say that. But at the end of the day, I'm really happy with my health, and I can experience life in a way that I would never have been able to experience life if I was sick.
Mm,
mm,
There's just things I
yeah.
can do. I can play with my children. I can hike the Grand Canyon.
mm.
When you're sick and you lose your physical ability to move and all these different things, you and as much as we try to um, for, I don't know, someone loses their legs in a car accident or something like that, as much as we try to accommodate and help people by building handicap accessible ramps and things like that, there's just certain things in life when you lose your physical ability through disease or disability or whatever it is, when you lose that, you can't experience life in the exact same way. I mean, I
Hmm.
think I think if we polled all of humanity for anyone that it has a disease, right? Or maybe they're or they have some kind of maybe a disability they're born with, and you ask them, dude, if we could snap your fingers and if you could push a button that says yes or no, continue with my health challenge or make it go away instantly, dude, who wouldn't push the yes button?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like who doesn't want to be piloting a body that just is in phenomenal health, that can do all these things in life, so we can experience the world, experience life, and make memorable experiences with our loved ones, which you can do regardless of your physical ability. You can always make memorable experiences with your loved ones, but it
Hmm.
just opens up, when you have physical ability, it opens up the different activities that you can
Mhm.
participate in,
Yeah.
right? Because so for me, I want a fulfilling life. I want to be able to like my oldest daughter, right? I was bringing her to the park one day, and how old was she at the time? Maybe 2 years old or something like that. And we're coming home, and it's over a mile, and she wants me to carry her all the way home,
Hmm.
and I want to do that for her.
Yeah.
And I don't have a sling, and I didn't have a stroller, and so that takes a certain amount of physical ability.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not taking care of my body and just doing the best I can, and I can't serve other people,
Mm.
whether that's my children, my family, or even the lady who needs help across the street, the old lady, right? So For me, I think, not just taking care of myself for selfish reasons, but also for selfless reasons, so I can
Yeah.
serve others as well. It's kind of like a mission. It's really important to me.
That's beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
gonna like three things you just said. I'm just like, they're amazing. One, this whole concept of focusing on your symptoms, and I almost feel like the diagnosis it gives it a power over you. Like
It
I
does.
have this thing. I am this thing. I am XYZ, right? And if you can separate yourself, kind of how you did that with the addict versus committed drug user, just like language twist.
Yeah.
Separate yourself from having
Or
making
untwist.
yeah, whatever. But like I love that like separation and empowerment back on the person. And the
Yeah.
other piece I love about what you're saying and something Joey and I were just talking about is like your physical health is one of the assets. I look around and I see almost everyone just completely ignoring to some degree, or at least not respecting it to the level that it should be respected. Like for me, I wake up every day. I go to bed and I'm like, all right, I did this, this, and this to make sure that like I'm going to be my highest performing self tomorrow. So that when I take my kids to the park or when we go on vacation and my kid needs carried, I gave that exact same example the other day talking to Joey, like, why am I rucking or why am I walking or why do I want to be fit? It's like, well, if one of our kids needs me to carry them for 3 miles, like, I want to be able to say, like, yes, I can do that.
Right.
For no other reason, I want to just be able to say, yes, I can do that. And I just think it's not talked about enough. Like
Hmm.
the simple things. We're not even talking about like being Joe and running a marathon. Like that's like for the 1%ers of the population. But for the 99% of us who just need a reason to focus on our health and our well being and health as your asset,
Yeah.
physical health. Mental health is also tied in there, but physical health, it's like, dude, can you carry your kids for 2 miles? Like, let that be your motivation. It's so
Yeah.
simple.
Absolutely. And I think being sick in a lot of ways, being sick is irresponsible.
Mm,
Not in all situations, but probably in most situations. Because if you look at the lifestyle that causes health is a lifestyle.
yeah.
If you look at the lifestyle that causes sickness, it's filled with all these selfish activities.
Wow.
It's all these gratifying me, 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 me. I want taste, price, convenience. Like food
Mhm.
is the new accepted crack. Just gratification. And I had like there's an uncle, right? And his nieces and nephews are saying, hey, let's go for a walk. And he can't walk with them because he isn't taking care of himself. He has every opportunity, and maybe this isn't um, with every country across the board, but I know in the United States there's a lot of opportunity, right? There's
Mhm.
the opportunity to take care of yourself. And so here's a guy who's got every opportunity to take care of himself and be in shape so he can be there for his nieces and nephews, right? Because when we're in a relationship, hey, I want to do what I want to do. And the other person's saying, well, I want to do what I want to do. So what's a healthy relationship, right? Some of the time you spend doing what the one person wants to do, and some of the time you spend doing what the other person wants to do. Well, what happens when the relationship is like, dude, we're going to spend doing what I want to do. Now it's your turn to that we're going to hang out, do whatever you want to do, but I can't be there for you because like I'm all screwed up physically, you
Mm.
know and it's not my fault. Oh, actually, most times it probably is your fault.
Mhm.
And so, but we're, the lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby is the biggest lobby in the United States. I think pharmaceutical lobby like is 3 times bigger than the next biggest lobby. Anyway, so we're getting all this messaging. Um, Billions and billions of dollars goes into messaging, and we're creatures of mimic.
Mhm.
We are creatures of mimic, and it never goes away ever. So when we're born into the world, we look and see things. We learn to walk by watching other people walk, and then we mimic that behavior. So this is how we learn is by looking at things and mimicking. We're creatures of mimic. It's how we're designed. Can't take it out. You can't you can't change that out. I don't identify as a creature that mimics. You are,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing really you can do about it, right? So anyway, advertisers know this, right? And so that's why they spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on putting images in front of you so you can see that and hear that and say, oh, I want to start mimicking it, right? Even if this is something destructive, like even if if you absolutely know cigarettes are bad for you, you put that advertisement in the person's head enough times in front of them, eventually they're going to say, you know what? Heck, why don't I just try one? And before you know it,
Hmm.
it's going to lead, so um, so this is why I believe this is why we're in the state of health we are, because we have messaging hitting us thousands and thousands of times a day, telling us not to be responsible for our health, telling us if we have a health problem that a pill is the answer,
Yeah.
that we should never be experiencing pain no matter what. It's like, unholy, the unorthodox. Like, don't you like experiencing pain is bad. Actually, experiencing pain is good. It's a really good motivator to make change
Yeah.
in one's life. So I think that's why we're in the state we're in, is because a lot of the marketing and advertising of the lifestyle is just being put in front of these creatures that are creatures of mimic, which is what
Totally.
what people are.
And it's like you said, it's a selfish lifestyle. It's one that is promoting comfort. It's promoting convenience. It's promoting, bacon that takes 30 seconds. That is,
Yeah.
it's
In the
not real
microwave.
bacon, right? Like we're talking about things that we're almost telling people that, hey, if you're having to make yourself breakfast in the morning, or if you're having to deal with the inconvenience of finding a local farm that's going to give you the right things, man, you're just like behind the times, and you're suffering because it's so much easier
We can
to.
get food from the grocery store. We don't even have to cook it
Well, I
anymore.
mean, now it's like
Oh,
we have a drone drop it off at your door,
Yeah.
and you should just roll over there and scoop it up and roll back. It's like it's insanity.
And this is the thing, like, because I think when people hear you say chronic, because I think you mean chronic illness, right? Like acute illness is like actually sometimes helpful for our bodies and whatever. Like everyone's going to experience that. But sitting in chronic illness, you called it borderline irresponsible. And I think some people, first of all, are going to get really like, whoa, Max, that's intense. But I'm looking at you right now, and you're a man who was on federal disability lifelong. You had degenerative, is that the worst?
degenerative
Crohn,
Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease, yes. And you're like, listen, I was that guy. You're not sitting here born with pristine health, looking at all these other people wagging your finger, saying if you suffer with symptoms, you're a jerk. Like that's not what you're saying. You're saying, listen, I was in this position, this posture of, on one hand, I was trying to encourage a guy to not lean into his drugs, but then on the other hand, I was doing the same thing, and I was in this position of I wasn't taking responsibility for my health,
Hmm.
and the opposite of responsibility is irresponsibility. So, as harsh as that statement seemed when you first said it, I was like, whoa, there's something to that, because here's a guy who's walked through this
Hmm.
and seen light at the end of the tunnel. And now you're like building amazing platforms for other people to do this too. And I just think like we can't even in that statement, we can't be like, oh, that's uncomfortable, turn off the podcast, we're
Yeah.
done with Max. Like that's another great example of like, no, like let's process that for what that means for you. Because I think, and the other piece of this too is like, the problem is that patients in that patient doctor relationship are told you can't do anything.
Hmm.
So it's not like we're just automatically like, yes, I want to suffer and I want to be tied to this bottle of pills. No one thinks that. But there's this language and this discourse in the medical community that, like, the patient, first of all, doesn't know anything, can't do your own research. If you try that, you're going to find something wacky. But
Yeah.
also, you have no power, you have no ability to change. And if anyone is a walking example of that, it's you, Max. And so it's like, you're just trying to stand here and say, listen, that's not the correct narrative. That's not the only narrative. And really challenge people to
Hmm.
sit with this idea that you can choose a different path when you're faced with chronic illness. And I know so many people who are faced with chronic illness. It's so hard.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's not even like the the doctor, like a lot of the doctors are stuck in the system.
Yeah.
It's really the paradigm of the system. The doctors, they get their medical license and they have to practice within the system,
Yeah.
right?
It's true.
And the system kind of gives them the rules and regulations. Granted, they have the choice to say, I don't want to be a doctor anymore, but it's this system of philosophy that is just marketed and a lot of I mean, the word patient, think about that word. How come they're not called clients?
Mm.
How come they're not called customers? It's like
Yeah.
that, even that word patient, like dumbs you down somehow into this, like the doctor is just like sitting at the right hand of God. I, probably shouldn't even be making eye contact with that doctor, and so it's just this paradigm where like it's just, it's crazy. There's all these, like, I mean, you could like debate it, people could debate it all they want, but here's the truth, right? We're given the benefit of the doubt that we're smart enough to sit on juries and right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to the food you eat, when it comes to trying to figure out your health, this is way too above you, and I'm not talking about like performing some kind of emergency surgery on yourself. You get in a
Right.
bad car accident and you need to like reconnect your arm. Like, dude, the doctors are great my friend Abby, she says the doctors are great mechanics, right?
Mm.
They are. But when it comes to like long-term chronic conditions, that the philosophy of the medical profession and probably even the modern world in general is, there's nothing you could do about it. Suppress the symptom, don't look at the cause, and hopefully that will continue to change as people kind of wise up. But that's where the
Yeah.
culture is right now. But cultures can change. I mean, maybe in 50 years or 100 years or 200 years, they're going to be looking back at this time like we look back at people thought the world were flat, and they kind
Hmm.
of like, how did they ever, how did those people ever think that, like a pill was the solution? And, and you read about these different cultures. They may look back at, I mean, if our species is still alive. I mean, there's always that like possibility we won't be, but
It's so true. There's
so.
always this feeling of right now we have it figured out.
Hmm.
And
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah.
everyone has thought that,
We
right?
always got it figured out right now.
Everyone
Yeah.
had it figured out.
And do you know that I think it was in the 1950, whenever it was, at some point all bacteria was bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have good bacteria and bad bacteria. At some point all cholesterol was bad. Now
Yeah.
we have good cholesterol and bad cholesterol.
Yep.
So the authority figures, the truth creators, they change the truth every so often. Well, it's like, oh look, it's been 17 and years, 18 years almost. Let's change what the truth is.
Yeah.
Let's like
I, I
let's shift it again. Like the
yeah.
truth doesn't change, right? It's so circumstances change and environment changes. So there's like, but there's certain things that like just we don't have it figured out, and we need to admit that. Like we have a very limited understanding, as silly as it sounds, and as much as we can do in with reconnecting limbs and things, we have a very limited understanding of what the body does. We're
Hmm.
not even close to. I mean, the body is so farther capable than the brain is just how it can function. How do we make music? Beethoven, like how do we have this creative ability that's like so far beyond our comprehension? We don't understand it. We don't know what the appendix does. We're trying to figure out, will we ever get there? I doubt it. We want to, well, what, break the cell down, atoms and molecules, break that down, quarks, break it down, I mean, you could take an inch and cut it in half forever. It's like this idea that we're going to try and find the secret of life and be able to control everything. And how do you ever get there in an infinite world? This is a three-dimensional world, right? You can go that way forever, and you go inward forever,
Mm.
and so there's these, and our life is limited, right? And so there's these um certain amount of things that have worked for thousands of years, like since the beginning of recorded history, of how to maintain good health. And so I like to stick with that. Like I
Yeah.
don't chase home runs. I don't chase miracle cures. Like I'm like the Warren Buffett of investing. He's just like, he's not chasing after a stock that's going to go through the roof. So I like, exercise, diet, good sleeping habits, clean environment. Like sunshine. You need sunlight. When you stick with the basics and you
Hmm.
can just like increase your health over time, that's the plan I'm on. That's the plan that I advocate to people.
Same. I'd love to know like what some of your basic food staples are. Like what are the foods you're eating on a
Uh,
daily basis?
I ended up transitioning to an all raw food diet, so I eat all raw food.
Okay. What does that look like?
Omnivorous raw, not like a raw vegan or vegetarian,
Yeah.
but omnivorous. So some of the staples in my diet, the biggest staple is probably raw meat. Like last night, I ate 2 pounds of raw chicken for dinner.
Mm-hmm. And
Uh,
what do you say to people who are like, raw chicken, that'll kill you? Are you preparing it a certain way?
I would love to bet them a lot of money that I can feed raw chicken to people and they'll just be fine. And we can do a double blind study or whatever
Hmm.
it is. So if you're watching this podcast and you would like to just make tons of money and you're so sure of what you know, I'm a gambling man. Let's put some money up. It could be 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever amount you feel you want to win,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll see who ends up with the money at the end of this,
So how
at the end of the bet.
is
But
this like,
well, here's okay. So we have a different standard of how we find the truth, and so we have society, right? We
uh-huh.
have these different like areas of society. We have the court system, the medical system. We have all these different systems of how, like in the medical system, we're trying to find the truth, right? In court, you try and find the truth, guilty or innocent, what happened. And so we have these different strategies and a different bar, a different level of how we find the truth in different areas. So let's just talk about how we find the truth in court. In court, you bring evidence in front of the jury, and then you have that evidence, not just evidence, lots of different evidence in front of the jury, and then you have skilled attorneys cross-examining that evidence. You with bullet fire. We're going to make sure that if there's anything in this evidence that might not look truthful, we're gonna hammer it with as many questions as possible, and it's gonna be in front of 12 people. And if one of those people says, I don't know, then it's not guilty, right? The jury's got to be unanimous. So that's how we find truth in court. Now let's look at how we find truth in the medical profession, right? Let's just say you've got diarrhea, vomit, a rash on your skin, you got a fever, and you're running to the emergency room, right? What's going on with me, doctor? I don't like how I feel. Make this go away. And the doctor is going to maybe analyze your vomit or who knows what. And the doctor might say, dude, you got food poisoning. You were drinking raw milk yesterday. You got food poisoning. And then that diagnosis gets put in the books and it gets shipped off to the CDC. All right. And all right, and it's the bacteria's fault. It was salmonella, it was E. coli, Campylobacter. Shame on them. So we're like none of these bacteria, by the way, can even defend themselves, right? They're just like, if they could talk, what would they say? So anyway, that's how foodborne illness is diagnosed. By the way, I believe that foodborne illness is a marketing term that was created to control food
Hmm.
because now food is dangerous because illness can come from food, right? So it's foodborne illness. Um, Side note, let's leave the side note. That's a side note. So here we are, and that's how diagnosis happens. If you don't believe that, go to talk to any emergency room doctor. They'll tell you that's how they diagnose food poisoning, things like that. So let's talk about what they're not doing. All right. If bacteria can speak, this is what bacteria. If you could put bacteria on the stand, this is what they would say. They would probably say, uh, "Don't just look at me. What about all this? Okay, so now you're living in this environment where you have other possible killers, right? Here's the crime scene. Bacteria is on the scene of the crime. It's guilty. No one really gets questioned. It's there, so that's the cause. And then you convict bacterial death. But you know what else is on the crime scene? A lot of heavy metals, a lot of poison, arsenic, toxicity, aluminum, mercury, you know, and no one in the emergency room that I ever know of says, you know what? Look at this rash. Look at this fever. Look at, dude, you got the pollution flu. The pollution flu. Yeah, man, you got the pollution flu. It's like, do you see the semis driving down the road putting the black soot in the air? That's why you have this rash on your skin. That's why you have a fever. Like doctors, none of the doctors diagnose the pollution flu, right? So so when the doctor makes the accusation and convicts bacteria as guilty, there's no cross-examination to that, So really, it's not even done. It's done by survey. It's not even scientific. So all these diagnoses of bacteria doing bad things, there's never been a double-blind study ever which, by the way, is supposed to be the scientific method, right? It's never been done against bacteria to prove the bacteria theory empirically. And so all the bacteria theory is based on survey, and that's what is communicated to people, and people are definitely afraid of bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to the emergency room with these symptoms and you say, I ate chicken last night or something like that, doctor might say, oh, it's probably undercooked. You probably had salmonella poisoning. These are the symptoms of salmonella poisoning because the computer tells me so, and so this is what they are, and then the person accepts that. So the person goes home and accepts it. So here I am on the podcast talking about eat raw chicken, and then one of the people are listening to say, no, dude, I had salmonella poisoning 4 times. You can't tell me. I know, I experienced it. And let me tell you something, brother. You were told you had salmonella poisoning. You were told that, and I'm not here to debate that. Doctors told you that salmonella was out to get you, and that salmonella took you down. But you know what? That doesn't make it necessarily so. So that's what I would tell people that don't want to engage in a financial wager. But personally, I would like the financial wager better because
Sure, yeah.
I get some money from it. So that's how we find the truth in the emergency room. That's how we find the truth. It's doctor's best guess, no cross-examination, no let's look at all the evidence, and it's like the logic. When you analyze that logic, the only thing that can keep you from debating the logic is if you're in a state of irrational fear. Fear and love get us to do things that are totally irrational. Like you're in love with someone on the other side of the world. Dude, I'm gonna get on a plane. I'll be there next weekend. Like, dude, are you kidding me? But it's totally rational when you're in love, right? And so it's fear and like strong emotions, right? Fear is another strong emotion that gets you to do things irrational. So like, dude, I was scared of bacteria, and it's just like a fear thing. But that's why people buy into it. But if you think about it rationally, it's like if you're driving by a burning house and the house is on fire, right? And there's firefighters there. And you're like, dude, the firefighters are there. Dude, they must have caused the fire. Oh, well, I'm going to go about my day. Like when you're driving down the road and there's a dead deer on the side of the road and the crows are eating the carcass. Oh, the crows are there. They must have killed the deer. They're the fault. So that's kind of like the logic, but no one really questions it because there's fear and bacteria, like you can't see them. Like, can you see the bacteria on my hand? They're probably there, but it's like the invisible enemy.
Yeah.
That it's just, and so there's a lot of fear involved. So there's another competing like theory. When I first heard the bacteria theory, this guy was telling me, "Oh, that's the bacteria theory," and I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean bacteria theory?" Like those 2 words didn't even feel right to me when I first heard about this. I'm like, bacteria is not a theory. This isn't a theory. Like he's like, no, it's actually a theory. And he explained this whole thing to me, right? And he said there's this other theory called the environment theory, or the terrain theory, meaning that bacteria are like the janitors of nature. And that if there's degenerative, sick cells, that the bacteria are there to kind of digest, decompose, and eat that tissue. But they're not the cause of the degenerative tissue. The cause of the degenerative tissue is from toxicity and pollution and things like that that get you sick. So what happens is we take all this pollution, toxic poisons into our body, and then it compromises the health of our cells, and then the bacteria come in to try and clean things up.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we see a state of disease, we see bacteria there on the crime scene, and we assume that they caused, the situation, like saying like the firefighters caused the fire. And maybe they do, and maybe they don't. But either way, we don't know for sure. And that's something that we need to kind of be more, it's a theory.
Yeah.
We just need to be upfront and honest about it. So in my experience, I've eaten chicken for almost a couple decades now, and it's very healthy. I've never gotten sick from it. I feel better. The people that I coached eat this way, they feel better. I raised 4 children this way. They're all doing great, So if you want to, all I can do is speak from my experience, right? So I would tell someone, give this a try, get experience. Don't fall into the experts have agreed, authority figures have confirmed, studies show, like any of that language. Tell me about your experience. Don't tell me about what another person told you happened to you. Like, figure that out for yourself.
I want to add some notes to the raw chicken.
I'm so curious to hear
So,
your
and
thoughts.
I want to start by saying, currently in my current state, I don't desire raw chicken. Now,
Yeah.
secondly, Max, I went to culinary school before I went to business school, and I have a lot of experience with food, but not in the sense that I've never experienced, at least not on a large scale, raw chicken.
Yeah.
So, third, I'm not going to take you up on the bet because I don't know. I have a feeling I would lose that bet, and I can't afford $100,000 right now. So, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna hold on to that. However, I do have some really interesting thoughts that were coming to my head as you were talking. One is in culinary school. Basically, all meat is commonly accepted to be eaten at the point of being raw, aside from poultry. And I'm not, and there's no really good reason why, other than salmonella. That's like basically the only thing that we talked about in school. So in school,
That's true.
beef can be eaten raw,
Seafood.
very commonly.
Shellfish.
Like steak tartare, beef
tartare, beef tartare, carpaccios. We're talking about scallops. Eating them raw is very, very common. Eating fish raw, again, extremely common.
Did you read that book, The Raw Milk Revolution, Liz? I think you.
I read it. Joey
Did
didn't.
you read? There's a story about me in there. Did you remember that story?
Oh, you're in their book?
Yeah.
Now that you're saying that, now I feel like I am. I read it, but gosh, I don't know, a year and a half ago.
I think this is the book by David Gumpert.
Yeah,
He
that's
wrote a
it.
few books. He wrote in one of his books. I don't remember if it's that particular book, but
I think
one
it
of his
is.
books, he opens a chapter
It's up there.
with. So David and I we're out on a date together, not like boyfriend's date, but just as a friend date. We're going to some activist rally on the East Coast. I don't remember what we're doing, but anyway, we're in Virginia, somewhere in Virginia, at a restaurant, right? And whenever I eat out at restaurants, which is rare, but it does happen, I'm explaining, hey, can you serve this to me raw? And most of the time I'm accommodated. So I'm in this restaurant, and we're looking at the menu, and Joel Salatin's farm, Polyface Farm, right? They have a chicken dish, right,
Yeah.
with meat from Polyface Farm. And I said, dude, so I'm talking with the server, and I said, will you bring me this dish? Will you bring, but keep the chicken raw? And the server's like, you want the chicken raw? I said, yeah, man. I said, look, I'll sign a waiver, whatever you want. And then, so they actually did it.
Are you in Stanton, Virginia?
I don't remember where in Virginia, but anyway, so they serve me raw chicken in the restaurant, and they put some lime, they squeezed some lime juice over it, and that was their version of ceviche or whatever.
Yeah.
But David Gumpert wrote about that in his book, and so
That's so funny.
That is hilarious.
And I want to address this last one.
I've been to that
I want
restaurant.
to address the last one before, because there's gonna be people out there that if they went to culinary school, or if they're Gen Xers or baby boomers, they're gonna say, well, what about pork?
People are gonna get rocked by this episode.
No, they're gonna say, Joey, you're wrong. It's not commonly accepted to eat pork raw. That's what this. And again, this is just from my own brain. I got to say this. In the 70s and 80s and 90s, it was very inappropriate to serve inappropriate to serve pork
Pink.
pink.
Yeah.
And what you've seen is now serving pork, like a pork tenderloin or pork chop that is cooked to more of a medium rare is
Get
now
out of here.
very common.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
So when I went through culinary school, it was like it was on the verge of adjusting and changing. And so even at my own company, when we serve pork tenderloin, I will often cook it to more of a medium and serve it that way. And but anyways, Max, maybe you remember. I don't know how old you are, but maybe
Just so you know, the bet stands good raw chicken or raw pork. The bet's good if
Do you eat
if
pork
there are any
too?
takers. Raw pork, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about the time where
I'm just saying there's validity to his argument,
I don't even want to say it on the
Yeah.
podcast.
and I don't want to eat raw chicken.
The time where Ray got the bacon out of the fridge.
Hey, I got a theory behind this. This is what I think. I think like years back we would kill an animal and eat it, right?
Totally, yeah.
Right. And when we're eating it, the meat is warm. So this is one of my theories on like why is cooked food desirable? It's nice and warm, right? I think like in a native environment, we're eating warm meat, you know.
It's true.
And but I don't know if it was, but fear is just, you know, like I think it was Steven Spielberg who came out with that movie Jaws.
I don't know, but
So
fish
anyway,
would be cold.
I was reading this article. I think it was Spielberg. I was reading this article when Jaws came out. Like no one wanted to go to the beach anymore, right? It's like a giant shark. The movie about a giant shark pillaging and eating everyone. And so it took 15 years for the populations at beaches. It took 15 years for them to get back to what they were before that movie came out.
Wow,
So
15 years.
I mean, it's like with the pandemic, I mean, people are going to be wearing masks for 15 years. This is like, these things don't.
The fear cycle.
And when sushi first came to the United States, it took like 20 years for it to really be accepted. When it first came, it wasn't like, let's go out for sushi. Now almost everyone, I haven't really met anyone now that is, oh, dude, I won't go near sushi. I'll get sick. Most people, you know, are okay with that. But at the time when it came here, it was like this big,
Totally.
you know, no one wants to be the first one out on the branch because it might collapse.
Yeah. Well, the fish thing, because you're saying when we eat land animals, they're warm, but I think cold water fish would be cold, right? And we
Yeah,
do
sure.
consume fish cold. So that kind of makes sense, you know?
Well, they would be when they're alive.
The flesh would be cold.
Their temperature would be up.
You think?
Yeah, I
Fish
mean,
are swimming in freezing cold water. You don't think their flesh
I guess I
is
don't know
cold?
for sure. You might be right.
I've
Yeah,
never
I think
butchered.
fish are cold-blooded.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not like warm blood, so
Which
they
is-
don't maintain body temperature.
Probably why we enjoy eating them cold and raw.
Yeah.
That's like closer to sushi.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
makes
That's my
sense. That
philosophy.
makes
It's
sense.
probably 0% scientific.
Anyways, the only reason I wanted to interject there was, you know,
Chicken's the only one.
currently that I'm aware of, the only one that's being that is, like not accepted in the standard conventional industry, and the world's come a long way,
True.
right? Is poultry. So when I say that, I'm saying like turkey, chicken, quail, pheasant. I've rarely been served. Rarely, I've never been served.
But duck
raw
is
turkey.
served raw.
Duck is served raw, but now duck again. It's like, is it because the meat is red? Like, is that why?
Who serves raw duck?
Well, rare, I should say.
Oh,
very
right.
very rare.
Yeah.
So raw on the inside.
People call it a red meat, but it's a poultry.
And we're all fooling ourselves if we don't recognize the fact that, you know, if the center of the meat that you're eating is 129 degrees, that is not cooked. That is 129 degrees, and we all know that bacteria can grow and thrive in what is it,
Up to
41 degrees to 141 degree temperature span. And so bacteria is very alive and well on the inside of a medium rare steak, a rare steak for sure, medium rare to rare duck, a medium to medium rare piece of pork. All of that is bacteria is in there and it's thriving. Now what oftentimes, especially a burger, if you're having a burger that was ground up, so the bacteria is just kind of mixed together.
Yeah.
And then you sear the outsides. You have a medium rare burger. Very common these days.
Yeah.
You're talking about that's a situation where the argument of, well, the bacteria that is dangerous is airborne and clings to the outside of the meat. This is always what people say.
Yeah.
And so you sear the outsides and you bring it up to temperature so that you kill the outside bacteria, but the inside is clean, it's sterile. And it's like, well, burger.
No.
You're talking about something that was ground up, and so anyways, just for the record, currently not eating raw chicken, but not
Raw chicken freaks me out. Are you eating it ground or like,
yeah, like are you cutting it up with a fork and
Eat
knife?
it both ways. I usually don't eat it ground, but I eat it both ways. It doesn't really matter to me. But
did it take?
and also for the record, I think someone could get healthy eating a cooked food diet.
Okay.
It's but I want to be the healthiest version of myself that I could achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I empirically believe that a raw food diet is healthier than a cooked food diet.
Mm-hmm.
But just eating a cooked food diet of good wholesome foods, you're going to be way better than the fast food nation that we have in the world.
Totally.
But I didn't want to go for average. I wanted to go above average because our standards are so low on what
Mm-hmm.
what's considered good health.
That's wild. Okay, so I love this and love how your story unfolds, but how in the world did you get a nationwide network of these farms? Like how long was that process of building sort of this database for Farm Match?
Oh, well, I've been at it for about 10 or 11 years now, but I'm very well networked in the local food movement just because art farm match is really my artwork as an activist.
Yeah.
I became very active going to different events where a lot of times farmers would be harassed. We're on the courtroom steps having a rally and things like that because they're not allowed to sell food to their neighbors because because the law says so, right? But I think where it's I like Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He used to quote this old, uh, uh, I think in English, Dante, I think was old Italian poet, and he is accredited for saying like something about like the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a state of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. And that kind of and Dr. King would kind of re translate that into like, look, we're morally bound to follow just laws, and we're as equally morally bound to stand in defiance of unjust laws. I mean, like Muhammad Ali, when during the Vietnam draft, Muhammad Ali was like, "Take me to jail. I'm not going to go shoot people. I'm not going to do it." And so, and you have Rosa Parks with like a lot of our country, and not just our country, but the world is built on people saying, "No, this isn't right. I'm not going to do this. You can't force me." And so there's a lot of that in my history in the food movement, helping out these farmers and helping people get access to the healthy food that they want and need. And so I'm just really well networked. I know a lot of people in the food movement that, and we're not even saying, like we're forcing you to eat this way. We just want the opportunity to eat this way.
Right.
If someone else wants to eat, whatever they want to eat, we're not going to tell them not to. I would like for people to eat healthy, but I'm not going to make it my responsibility to tell you what to put in your mouth. But I
Mm-hmm.
expect the same mutual respect from you, so that's like a political ideology. I don't think there's a good reason to have that I've ever heard a good reason to have a country that is not that way. A lot of the people that are eating, that want to eat local food and buy raw milk from local farms, I mean, a lot of these people are professionals, well respected professionals in society.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are medical doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are judges. Some of them are attorneys. Some of them are teachers. Some of them are construction workers. Some of them are librarians. And so, there's a time when homeschooling was not legal. And how did homeschooling get legalized? Well, people had to go through the fire. There had to be fighting, there had to be court dates. I wish the world isn't that way, but it almost seems like that's the kind of way the way world is. If you want to kind of purify and create something better, it's almost like, there has to be a martyr or something like that. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's an important place for peaceful non-compliance.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Totally.
yeah, absolutely.
Talk to us about, for those who are listening who might not have seen some of the political structure in action. Like, what is the biggest hurdle for folks trying to sell food? Because there's like particular laws where it's like, hey, if I want to make this food and serve it to people, I have friends in Canada who have dairy cows who literally told me if their friends come over for dinner, they are not allowed to serve their friends raw milk. Like
Yeah.
they could get in trouble for just serving it. So in the States here, what are some examples of some of the political landscape around this local food movement that makes it hard for these producers to serve their community?
Well, the biggest hurdle is the our internal fear
Mm,
of not standing up against uh, the oppression. That's the biggest hurdle. The second biggest hurdle is the farmer being left on their own and not being supported with the customers, where the customers are going to say, like, I'm going to bind arms with the farmer, and if you take the farmer to jail, you're taking me to jail too.
Mm.
So the biggest hurdle is the internal fear. The next biggest hurdle is the lack of willingness to go to jail together and to stand united together in a peaceful way.
and why would farmers get sent to jail?
Well, farmers get sent to jail if they're breaking the law. Farmers have been prosecuted criminally. And if the law says you can't sell food, if you can't sell raw milk, and they're doing it, then they get prosecuted criminally, and then you go to jail, or they take all of your property. They
Yeah.
take all of your milking equipment. They, basically steal your property, steal your money, and so this happens. Armed SWAT teams come in and raid farms at gunpoint.
Yep.
There's been plenty documented case of that. Kristen Canty made a movie called Farmageddon all about it. And so
There
it's
was the Miller case recently with the chicken production, right? Do you remember this? It
in,
was
in
Miller.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, maybe like a year ago-ish.
I think that's about beef production, unless
Oh, was it beef?
it's a different case. Yeah, but there's Amos Miller in Pennsylvania who
Yeah.
he wants to process meat on his farm, and they're saying, no,
Yes.
you can't process meat on the farm. And his customer, and he's no one's ever gotten sick, and he's probably been doing this for 20 years,
Yeah.
and his customers want him to do it. This is what people want. He's not forcing this down someone's throat. He's not lying and deceiving and say, hey, I'm doing it the way the government wants me to. He isn't. He's purposely processing meat without chemicals on his farm, because that's what his customers are saying. Please, please do it
Yeah.
this way. I don't want to buy the food from the store. I want to buy it from you. I want it the way you do it.
Yeah.
And then here we have again people who are smart enough to sit on a jury and convict someone to death, but they're not smart enough to say, this is the way I want my food processed. So it's just another
It's so
it's
hard.
almost laughable. I mean, there's a big sad part to it. It's a travesty, but it's almost laughable. Like, how do we get to this point where we're so untrusted to be able to make decisions for ourselves? I mean, I can go rock climbing and
Yeah.
be hanging on the edge of a mountain and put the video on YouTube and get 20 million views, and everyone's gonna be like, wow, look at that guy. I can go skydiving, right? Jumping out of an airplane. But I can't say, hey, Amos, like, I want this meat, without chemicals,
Yeah.
please process it. I want it fresh as possible right from you. So it's just it's not logical. There's no logical debate there. It's an irrational, fear-based debate is why farmers are getting prosecuted, and let the market decide. Like, if Amos is getting a bunch of people sick, then shut him down,
Right.
right?
Let the
But
market
he's
decide.
not.
Mm.
He's not. I don't think in 20 years, I don't think there's a single case of anyone got sick from him. One time, I gave milk. I gave milk to here's a story. I gave milk to this lady one time, and then she called me like a couple days later, and she said, "Dude, I've been up all morning vomiting. The milk got me sick." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, here we go." And and so I've got a lot of doctors in my network, right? And so I thought she was gonna like call the feds or something like that. And so I said, here, like, let me connect you with one of my doctors. I'll pay for the consultation. Let's see what I want to make sure you're okay. I didn't think it had anything to do with the milk, because 100 people drank the milk. Everyone was fine. She was the
But
only
her.
one
Yeah.
who was waking up vomiting the next day. So anyway, doctor gives her a consultation, talks with her. Doctor calls me back. Doctor says, Max, everything's fine. I'm like, woo. You're like, what happened? And he said, dude, she was out all night drinking. Dude, she never told me that. So here's a human being, right? I'm trying to make a case for how smart people are, right?
This isn't helping.
But look, she's highly intelligent, right? But she believes what she believes because of all the marketing and messaging and saying raw milk bad, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so here's a human being that went out on an all-night drinking binge. Like, has anyone who's listening ever done that? Have you ever been hungover, vomiting in the morning? This is what, if you haven't, so you know, this is what happens when you're out drinking all night. You wake up and vomit. It's called being hungover, right? So she's hungover, vomiting next day. And she blamed it on the milk that she had because she drank some milk.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? But so this is like the
Man.
paradigm we're up against, where highly intelligent adult creatures have been so conditioned to believe that milk is like, you know, fresh milk from the farm is so dangerous that
Yeah.
that's the first scapegoat. It's like the go-to scapegoat. If you go to the ER and tell the doc, I mean, don't tell the doctor you're drinking, but if you're like, I mean, dude, I had some raw milk yesterday, I don't feel good. Immediately they're gonna blame it on the milk.
Immediately.
Yeah. So
That happened, to a family member with raw oysters. Remember?
I mean, if you rolled in and said I had raw chicken, it would be like
Game over.
You
Game
ever see
over.
that scene in Monsters Inc., like the code 501 or
Yeah,
whatever. He's got the sock on his back. They'd be freaking out. They'd be like hazmat suits running in, like raw chicken.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it
Dude,
would
maybe,
be.
maybe you should make a video, a YouTuber or a comedy one like that. I thought of like something like that. Like you got like we have a SWAT team like kicking in the door, right? And then there's like this crazy rave drug party going on, and people are like just doing all kinds
Shooting
of drugs.
up, and they're like gonna bring a
like,
thermometer in.
Coming through, and they're like walking through the room where all this like this crazy madness is going on, and they like make their way into the kitchen, open the fridge, and like get the milk, and then like find the guy in the bedroom and like arrest him and lock him up or something like that.
It's so funny.
It is true. Like, it's just such a weird thing that like we consume raw dairy on a regular basis, and it was the foundational gateway into real food. We actually started making raw milk formula for our infants, and like I would have never ever said that to my old pediatrician. You know what I mean? Like I later found a doctor who was like, raw milk, that's amazing, go for it. But like it is this weird thing. That's why humans are so scared. It's because we're like there's a real message around like just questioning all of the natural substances and putting all your faith in something that has maybe been tested but is not natural or is processed in a way that changes its composition. And it's a real exactly how you mentioned in the beginning of the show how you had to like pick up your life and replant it in this new paradigm.
Yeah.
It's a painful process to do that.
It's because people don't like change. People fear. There's a great book written by Susan Jeffers. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. She wrote another book about fear. She ended up passing away of cancer, but she wrote a lot of good books on fear. And in the one book, she opens the book. This is how she opens the book. We fear change. We fear staying stuck. We fear endings. We fear beginnings. We fear living. We fear dying.
Yeah.
And then she talks about how the whole culture is just like prone with fear. And if you think about it, and she goes back when she was younger and tells a story when she's younger, how her mom was telling her like, you know, be careful. She's leaving. Bye, mom. Love you. She's going out the front door, like, and her mom is okay. You know, be safe. Be safe. You know, save. You know, and she said like she heard be careful. You know, so be careful so many times. She's surprised that she said, I'm surprised I ever made it out the front door. You know, it's like, and just listen to people's language, like after going forward in your life, listen to people's language, how many times it's like, okay, be careful. Okay, be careful. Okay, be careful. It's like, you know, it's like these impressions we get as opposed to like, all right, love you. Have a great day. Take some calculated risks. See what you can learn today.
Yeah.
You know, like, where there's no,
Take some calculated risk. You know
yeah,
what I
take some
started
calculated
saying?
risk and see what you can learn today.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
s- on the playground, I started saying to our little kids, instead of like, "Oh, be careful," I started saying, "Do you feel confident? Do you feel confident?" And then they'll be like, "Yes." And I'm like, "All right, go for it. Continue."
Yeah.
I gotta pull this up. I'm gonna, can I email you? I got a picture. Let's keep talking, but can we bring a picture into
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
pic to the podcast? All right. I want to show, most people haven't seen this. I want you to see what a playground looked like about 70 or 80
Oh,
in
I can't wait to see.
playground from
I
the
think about that all the
1930s.
time.
I
I'm
was
like,
just thinking about some of the common fears that we see today in, and it has a lot to do with, and I'm calling it like digestion, and like I get an upset stomach,
ooh.
and like gluten is a fear now,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's everyone's scared of gluten, and then we've got a fear of dairy,
For sure.
and we've got a fear of meat. Like these are like the main kind of like
Mm-hmm.
culprits
And
of
fat.
today. Fat, right? It's like there's fat in this, like fat, right? It's I'm terrified, and I can't, as a chef and as someone that's been growing up hunting, I just I can't, I'm a little bit still in the most appropriate way possible stuck on the raw chicken thing. So I'm gonna stay there for a little bit longer. I'm staying there for a little bit longer, and for all good reasons, I think at least. Digestion for milk, right? A pasteurized milk. I personally actually will get an upset stomach if I drink conventional dairy, or
Mm-hmm.
if I go again, if I go out to eat, which is we don't go out very often,
But we definitely
but
do.
we definitely do. And there are some occasions where I'll be out and about, whether it's with um, uh, for business or for with family, and like Chipotle sometimes comes up as an option. If I get the sour cream and cheese from that place, it rocks my stomach. Can't even begin to explain
Yeah.
how much that rocks my stomach. I do not get it, and everyone's like, "You don't get sour cream or cheese on your burritos." Like, dude,
Chipotle always hurts my stomach, and
I
now I
can't
wonder if that's
I
why.
can't mess with that stuff like that. And everyone's like, "Well, maybe you have a dairy intolerance."
You're
I'm
like,
like,
I drink
I
a
have a
quart.
pasteurized dairy intolerance,
Yeah.
but if I had this morning, and most mornings I will have I'll add some protein supplements, whether it's collagen powder or protein powder, but to raw milk after a workout or a run, and I'll drink like a quart
Yeah.
of raw milk.
You feel great.
Great, outstanding. I feel so good. No digestion issues. No, I don't get like gassy. I don't none of that. Right?
Praise.
Praise. Anyways, um, the thought that I have again on the raw meat thing is um, bacteria. The question. Maybe I'm posing a question to you two, and then Max, with you having more experience in this. When
Sure.
you cook protein, and if you cook all the bacteria out of it, are those bacterias are they acting similar to the bacteria within dairy, wherein they can help kind of
Yeah.
kind of digest the food as like
Mm.
you see what I'm getting at here?
Yeah, and then
Is
first of all, yeah, okay, I got you. So first of all, people should know when you cook the meat or the milk or whatever it is, you're still eating the bacteria. You're just eating dead carcasses.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
mm-hmm.
All right, so it's not like it evaporates and disintegrates and
Hmm.
reappears somewhere else. But yes, what we're like, the thought leaders of the world are now coming for full circle and saying, "Oh, dude, we actually need bacteria now. We need, bacteria to help us digest." They're saying we're bacterio sapiens, that there are more bacteria
Uh-huh.
cells
Uh-huh.
than human cells on this mass that
Yep.
we call our body, and so now bacteria is responsible for creating these essential enzymes that we need to live. So there's so much undiscovered stuff that all of a sudden saying bacteria is bad, this is what the truth is, mow it all down with machine gun fire is, but the answer is yes. The same is true with meat as than milk. The bacteria helps digest the meat. There's um, there's a book called Enzyme Nutrition by Dr. Edward Howell. It's a good book. He doesn't go too much into the raw meat thing, but he talks about enzymes and how there's food enzymes that come with the food that are all destroyed if you like heat the food over 106 degrees or something like that. And there's digestive enzymes, and then there's metabolic enzymes. Those are three types of enzymes that we've discovered thus far. And there's probably another, million that we haven't
Mm-hmm.
discovered. There's all these new things that we don't know about. We keep discovering. and then we change what the truth is, and then demand that to be the truth, and it's like so that's like the cycle of science, right? But yeah, eating raw meat and having the bacteria on the meat helps you digest the
It was
food.
just a thought that I had.
What about the protein? Because that's something we talk
When,
about with raw milk. Is the
when you
protein
cook
more intact
protein, it mutates the protein and makes it harder to digest.
when
And
you
so
cook
if
it?
you look at, let's look at the like scale. Let's look at the extremes, right? All right, so the raw extreme and the cooked extreme. So the raw extreme is like a shark. Like this creature is coming and biting a hunk out of you while you're still alive, right? Or an owl will eat a mouse while the mouse is alive and go, like, you don't get more raw than that, right? So that's the extreme raw. And then the extreme cooked would be, all right, we're going to take this meat and put it in an incinerator, like a crematorium. We're going to turn it into a pile of ashes, right? And you're going to eat the ashes. Well, I don't have to do the double blind study that I believe that if a person eats ashes every day at every meal over time, that they're going to die pretty quickly. All right. So we're going to go on that assumption. We're not going to say we need to prove that. We're just going to walk with that in this conversation forward. So the question is, okay, so there's the spectrum. Where on the spectrum is food healthiest to eat? Like at what point do you say, the protein's damaged, it got overcooked? Like where's the magic number?
Hmm.
Everyone agrees, right? We all agree that the ashes, the protein's damaged, it's not going to facilitate regeneration of healthy tissue in your body. And so I think the farther you go in that direction, the more it gets damaged.
Which been a lot, like I'd say the last 2 to 5 years, like, and I'm guilty of this because I like a good char, but it's like grilling your food and you get that char.
It tastes good, right?
It tastes good, but there's like a carcinogenic property
Yeah,
in that burntness, right? That's why people on the GAPS diet can only eat meat that's like simmered in broth. Like you
yeah,
can't eat like because you're like so compromised on your gut, right? And so you're eating really easily digestible foods. So that makes sense. Like I've heard that before, like eat your meat as rare as possible for intact protein quality because the more you cook it, the more it denatures it, which it makes sense, but again, it's a little hard to like wrap my head
We're
around.
talking about palatability and what we're used to, right?
I'll
I
eat raw beef, that's fine.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of
Max is like, come
there's
on.
there's
and you
he's
guys, you guys asked me what I eat, so I think that's how we got on this
I
conversation.
love
no,
that we
this
covered
is
this
this
because
is
it's
so, and
fascinating.
I think this digestion thing has always been something that people, anyone I talk to,
Which you've experienced firsthand. Your
yeah,
body couldn't digest
you're
anything.
looking for you're looking to extract, you maximize nutrients
Yeah.
from what you eat, right? And if
And
you
energy.
exactly so, and if you take, and I think dairy is the easiest one for me to wrap my head around because I've got the experience. This is what Max is saying. It's like, listen, you've not had raw chicken. I haven't had it. I don't got the experience, but I do have experience with dairy, right? So I've had conventional dairy, whether it's from Chipotle or from like a jug from Kroger,
Think about it, raw eggs too. Like we consume raw eggs.
all the time.
Yeah,
We consume
and
a
and
lot of, yeah.
and dairy is actually the most sensitive out of all the foods. Dairy was never meant to be exposed to sunlight. It was never meant to be
Mm.
exposed to temperature change. It was meant to be suckled from 98.6 degrees into 98.6 degrees,
Mm.
And so dairy is very sensitive. So if someone's listening and they're even having a hard time tolerating raw dairy, I would recommend going direct to the farm and getting raw dairy out of the mammal and drinking it while it's still warm right there. Don't even refrigerate it.
Mm.
Try it while it's warm. And because some people are really compromised, they have to go to these like extra measures. If that doesn't work, try nursing on the
Hey,
suck on the goat, man.
Sally Fallon told in a talk one time, I heard her say, if you swab your saliva on a goat's like teat or a cow, like I think it takes like 1 hour for them to start producing a nutrient makeup that's like ideal for you. That's how freaking intelligent that relationship is. Like
Yeah.
that's why that nursing
That's
relationship,
crazy.
I mean, it happens with babies. Like that's why breastfeeding is so incredible. But yeah, it takes like an hour for their milk production or something like that. A
Yeah,
couple
and
hours.
if you want to talk about what studies show that babies that breastfeed have higher IQs.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
there's
believe
a
that.
there's a study show for you. I emailed you this picture. Is there a way to pull it up? Or
Oh, can we pull that up? We might have to add it in the show
yeah,
notes.
add it in later. But yeah, check that out when you see it. This is what I think there's a playground from the 1930s.
You'd have to log into my thing. Um, I can't wait to see that. That's gonna be...
I think I have an option to share my screen.
You
You
do.
want?
Yeah,
Go,
do
go ahead
that.
and share.
All right, let's see. This is share screen. Huh.
This is for the YouTube viewers only, by the way. So
YouTube. This
hit
is
us up on YouTube. You're gonna see some
exclusive
serious.
screen share. Select a screen before I share.
Probably
Huh.
just has you do a tab or something.
Yeah. Hold on. Window.
Yeah.
Bang. Bang. Do you see it?
Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my word. Okay, so this thing is like 20 feet in the air.
I know. This is a playground from the 1930s.
It looks like a swing set with the swings taken off
For sure, just dirt on the
and
ground.
extension ladders just propped to the side of it. That's the swing. That's the playground.
Look at that. Look at this. Do you see this guy right here sitting in the middle? Like, how did
Yeah.
that guy get there? Did he...
Oh my God, he had to like shimmy across the bars. And then there are swings because that one kid with his feet in the air is swinging.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Like, yeah,
then,
this guy right here. There's
like,
another guy here.
it's so tall, there's a dude on a bicycle underneath the guys
Swinging.
on the bars.
There.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look at this guy on the ladder doing an inverted crawl up.
He
And
knows
he
when
looks
it's
like
up.
he's like 7. Like these are young kids. This is what I'm saying. This is why at the playground now I don't say, be careful. I say, do you feel confident? And then if their answer is no, you bet I'm right there.
And I will say, there are situations where I will step in, right? Like I don't let my kids play in traffic. But like
Yeah.
I don't. The thing I'm very, very I want to instill fear in on a certain level is water. So like I don't let my kids just like meander near water, and I make that clear. But like the playground
yeah.
is a different space. But yeah, like
Or the woods, the playground. It's like, hey, go
yeah,
explore.
climb the tree. If your tiny physical body can get you high enough, you probably can get you low. And like I don't think our capabilities are going to completely outweigh. Although
Mhm.
sometimes you can get too high.
Totally.
But for the most part, I'm like, it's a good match. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
was
yeah,
great.
you're welcome. Yeah, it's just an example of, what, especially in the modern world, I think we're like over safe.
Mm.
Oh, I
We're
agree.
just there's like but I think safety makes sense, but for me, eating cooked food isn't safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it's definitely less safe than raw food,
Yeah.
and even if you're like a question I get a lot is, dude, well, if you're going to eat raw meat, you better know where it comes from. Dude, I want to know where my meat comes from, whether I eat it raw or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I get some meat from this big factory, Walmart meat or whatever, that doesn't change the fact that the animal was injected with who knows what.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's a
change
good
the
point.
fact that the animal was abused. That doesn't change the fact, and then like fill in the blank,
Right.
So, that's what I say to people, for anyone who's like, you better know where your meat comes from. I know where your food comes from, regardless. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're going to be educated, nowadays we know how to like send text and do all this, type. We can drive car, like all these different things, but we don't know much about when it comes to our food, and that's something that got advertised into society.
Mhm.
That isn't a natural state of living. I think a lot of it came in the industrialization of food, when like convenience started really getting marketed heavily, with like, whenever you make a cake, it was always from scratch, right? Eggs, flour, you're making this whole thing, and then they came up with like, dude, here's the cake mix, just add water,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And then they're like putting some like happy housewife on the TV. Oh, I've got so much time. Look at this. That's only, look,
Yeah.
only takes a minute or whatever. And they like, all that messaging came into society, and the messaging is like, dude, it like spending a lot of time in the kitchen is an unhappy life.
Yeah.
Taking time to prepare food is an unhappy life. A happy life is instant food, and so that's a total mentality. Like, look, you obviously you went to chef school or whatever, right? You like spending time in the kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So, but for the majority of society, the messaging that's being, that is like put into people is that food should be fast. Otherwise, it's like unjust. And
Fast, cheap, and
Well,
easy.
it's been
yeah, that's cheap and
commoditized.
easy.
It's been commoditized. It's saying like nourishing yourself is purely just like a commodity. You should just nourishing yourself. I'm saying that with air quotes. You should just be able to go through a drive-through, get your food, and then continue doing what you're doing because having to think about it, shop for it, cook it, whatever else is effort that man, you're a real chump if you're doing that.
And
Yeah,
here's the thing that makes me mad is that anyone calling for the opposite of that, which is exactly what I often am championing people along, like get in your kitchens, cook. It doesn't have to be super hard. You can do it.
yeah,
The feedback I get from the haters is like, well, how dare you suggest that people have the ability to cook their own food? Sometimes all they can get is a bag of Cheetos. And I'm like, listen, I understand food deserts and desertification and scarcity of resources is real. But do not believe the overarching lie that the American society no longer has a place in the kitchen. That's a lie. You can absolutely get connected to a local farm. I'm always like, farm match, come on. And then, we're not even talking about affordability. We're just talking about, is your family or is your personal health worth it for you to spend time or your mental energy learning how to prepare food? Is it worth it to you?
yeah, yeah.
You know?
And if there are these food deserts and there are these people in these tough situations and impoverished situations and they don't even own a kitchen, and how are the Cheetos getting into that environment in the first place? Dude, we're sending the Cheetos there.
We're
Yeah.
Let's
sending the
not send the
Cheetos in.
Cheetos. If they don't have a kitchen, let's ship them in like high quality dehydrated beef jerky. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So there's always something that can be done. So I'm like
Yeah.
with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for it. We have the resources, we have the land, we have the animals. There's no reason why, we healthy food should be like the rally cry for
Mhm.
any government agency, the health department, the USDA, the FDA. It's not the rally cry.
Mm-mm.
It's what you call that fast, quick, and easy, or what you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
convenient, cheap, and easy.
yeah, yeah,
So for people who are like, okay, I might not be in on the raw chicken, but I definitely want to have farm fresh food. Talk to us like it's as simple as just going to farmmatch.com, truthfully. But like anything else that you listeners or viewers might need to hear to get connected to their local farm. Because for us, our process that we went through is we went to Farm Match, you type in your zip code, you get a list of farms depending on where you are. I think we have like 5 options in the greater Cincinnati area. And you pick one, you can kind of read through. There's like a web page of like what the farm is, who they are, what they stand for, type of deal. And then I went through and had to get connected with them because I'm part of a private membership association. They're not selling publicly, they're selling privately. So then I fill out paperwork one time 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now.
yeah,
And now I'm in. And now I use your platform, Farm Match, every week to order my stuff online. So it's beautiful. I don't have to like write a check to the farmer or anything. It's all automated for me. And I pay a really, really minimum. I think it's like $3.75 a month for the Farm Match thing to take care of it. So affordable. And that's all just billed from the farm. And then we get access to amazing food that we get every single week. So much so that we're actually one of the drop points for our local farm. So for other people, it probably looks different in their cities, but
yeah.
they can go to farmmatch.com, type in their zip, and then what can they expect from there?
Yeah, well, our goal is to connect people with local farms. We don't have farms in every area, but we do have farms that'll actually ship. So if you're one of those people that you're in an area where we don't have farms, we do have some farms that will ship to you. And chances are most of the food you're getting in the grocery store is being shipped in anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the best situation is, I believe, local food. So they can go to Farm Match, put their zip code in, find farms, read about the farms, connect with the farms, and buy from the farms. Buying from the farms is the most important thing, one of the most important things we can do while we're alive. All right. So we have our food economy in the United States is a 1.8 trillion, 1.8 trillion, I think. if it's 11 zeros, it's the number 18 with 11 zeros, and there's four commas. If you include the zeros and the decimal point for cents, then it's 13 zeros. And so if you take, just to give you like an idea how much $1.8 trillion is, and if you take $1 bills and stack them up like like $100, what is that, about like a half inch or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
All right, if you stack up 1.8 trillion and you keep going, your stack of money is going to be 17 times the diameter of planet Earth.
No.
Yeah, do the math. I came up with this data, came from me. All right, I took $500 cash and I smashed it down and measured how tall it was. All right, so this data point I'm the source of this data, so I know it's true. It's 17 times the diameter of planet Earth. That's how tall the stack of money is. That's how much we spend on food every year. It's how much we're going to spend this year in 2024. We're going to spend that 2025. Maybe we'll spend more in 2025. Maybe it'll be up to $2 trillion. Who knows? But when we buy food with each of our dollars, that's called a vote. All right, so a dollar is a vote. It's a ballot you cast. And if you don't know who you're voting for, you can check out your credit card statement or your checkbook, and it'll tell you exactly who you're voting for. And you want to ask yourself, are you voting for, because when you vote for local regenerative food, you're voting for a better world, you're voting for less crime, you're voting for less pollution, you're voting for more memorable experiences with your loved ones. When you vote in industrialized, commercialized, centralized, chemicalized food system, you're voting for more crime. You're voting for more pollution. You're voting for humanity, the end of humanity. You're voting for all these undesirable things, whether you know it or not. So the first thing someone really needs to do is they need to make a mental shift. They need to really understand that when they're spending money, they're supporting one of these two competing systems. And then they have to make another mental shift and realize that spending time in the kitchen and preparing food can be a great experience. You don't have to be in that experience, like we're being advertised. It can be actually cool. It can be fun. It could be memorable. You can, do it with other people and other family members and build human connection around that experience. Have some dinner parties, invite friends over, make a social event. One of our taglines with Farm Match is building community through food. So that's the first thing that needs to be done, is the mental shift. Then the next thing from there is you take action. Whether it's go to Farm Match, whether it's go to your local farmers market, and start sending your money to the food provider that's going to look out for you and look out for your family's health. And not just, don't be a fair weather fan. When the pandemic hit and the grocery stores shelves were empty, what happened was everyone, farm food sales went through the roof. And now that things are calmed down and people can walk outside again, you don't have to be socially distanced and locked in your house. Now we're seeing farm food sales drop down a little bit. So there's a lot of kind of fair weather fans of, we'll use the farms in the state of crisis, but when times are good, we're going to go through the drive-through again. The problem with that is you can't just make food suddenly appear out of thin air. So if you want to have that relationship with the farmer, they can constantly provide food on a continuous basis, you have to be on your side of the relationship. You have to buy from them every week or every month or every, however often that cycle is, you buy from them. Don't just go to the farmer in a state of crisis. You have to turn it into your lifestyle.
Yeah,
That's
I like
super
that.
awesome.
And I'm trying to do the math in my head. I think we're sitting at 30% of our monthly budget is on our local farm. Then we might have a smaller, that might increase a little bit more in the summertime. But I would say our minimum,
Just seasonally.
yeah, is at
So
least 30%.
you're doing a lot of voting.
Doing a lot of voting. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, how can we increase that, or what other, well, that's not true. That's not true, because that's not even taking into account our bulk beef purchase, which that would throw it, because that's expensive.
And I mean, if you add in hunting,
yeah, that's expensive too.
Yes,
honestly.
but that's what your values are.
Yeah.
And we're advertised into not valuing that.
Yeah.
But those are good values to have because let's look at the benefit of those values. What do
Oh,
you get from those values? You
I,
get
I,
health. You know,
yeah.
I mean, we can go down the list, right? So it makes sense that's where we should be putting our money. It's interesting that you kind of knew that on the spot. You must have like thought about that or looked about that before. Like, how much do we spend on food? I remember one time I did something similar, and at the time I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, but at the time our household income gross
Hmm.
75% was going to our food.
Mm.
And some of these people that I've interacted with my life, I mean, they're living. I personally would rather live in a cardboard box under a bridge, eating like a king,
Yeah.
than driving the Bentley through the McDonald's drive-through. All right, that's me, right? But some of these people I've met over the years, I see like, they're like dressed in rags. I mean, they got nothing, and they're like buying this high-end, you know, higher priced food that is well worth the money, but that's where they invest their resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not playing the celebrity bling game that's marketed to everyone, and you know they're gonna get rewarded. They are being rewarded for that. They're rewarded with better health. And how do you even put a price on your health anyway? Like,
It's
how
one of
did
the
we?
most valuable assets. Your health is it's if you were to take the assets you have as a human being, right? You've got relationships, you've got health, you've got spirituality, you've got physical things, and I'm like, man, why is health getting thrown so far to the bottom? It's crazy. Why is working out something that we do just to not be over like weight, right? Right? Like,
Hmm.
hey, work out so you're not,
Or just moving your body, even just
it's
like not
it's like
exercise.
why are we not trying to just be the best we can? It's crazy.
Just do it so you can carry your 2 year old for 2 miles. Like, seriously, if that's your only reason,
Yeah,
that's a great reason.
dude,
Totally.
I love that, Joey. I think that's the word that needs to get used more. Asset.
Hmm.
I've never heard. I mean, I talk about health investing, but I've never heard the term. I mean, I know the term asset is, but I've never heard someone explicitly say what. Like, I like what you're saying.
Hmm.
Is that, dude? It's an asset. It truly is. It truly is. Because otherwise, what are you in the hospital bed and everyone's got to wait on you and you're good to no one.
But you got a pile of money in the bank, or you've got a nice house, or it's. I was on a run, and I was running a marathon, and my buddies I had a headphone in so I could hear messages that my friends and family and whatnot would send me to either. I told them you can either um, send me like insults or affirmations. Both are motivating, right? And so some people were sending me things like you're I can't believe you're doing this, you're an idiot, right? Like, you paid to suffer, good luck, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, and he's always just
He's good
next
with
level
words.
wisdom.
Yeah.
He texts me, he's like, man, he's like, Joey, proud of you, proud of what you're doing, and all the investment you put in to your physical health and the asset that your current physical capability has become for you. He's like, enjoy it right now. You're at that peak, and you get to use that. And so I'm on this run. And I'm like, that is crazy when you think about it. Nutrition, not drinking alcohol, not drinking soda, not overdoing it. All these things that I did, these sacrifices I made for a goal. I had an objective. I wanted to perform well, right? And I'm on this run. I thought about that. I'm like, I have been investing so much energy, effort, time, money to get to this place physically where I can do this thing that's not
Hmm.
normal,
Yeah.
right? And and I look at that, and there's so many other objectives and goals we can have as people that's not just run a marathon.
Hmm.
I would actually say running a marathon is great from a learning perspective, but
It's not for everyone.
it's definitely not for everybody. You don't need to go out and run a marathon to recognize where being healthy can. Hey, when I'm a grandparent, I want to be able to take my kids out hunting. I want to be
Yes.
able to drag deer out of the woods. I want to be able to load them up into the truck. I want to be able to hoist it up in the air. I want to be able to work in the farm, be on my hands, and like cut down the Christmas tree. Like, these
Yeah.
sorts of things that I want to be able to do. And it was something that Max was talking about early on. And so, anyways, I think I think I have a lot to learn from you, Max. But that was kind of my insight. Definitely didn't come from me, so I got to give credit to my buddy Luke. But
Dude,
that's kind of where that came
I
from.
like what you're talking about running. I think something everyone it'd be good for everyone to get to the ability, not maybe like to run a marathon, right? But like to be able to run on the spot.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
Like at any given moment, you could just start running. Dude, I was
yeah.
at my farm, right? And I was interviewing this one chick to hire her, and so I got a 211 acres in Wisconsin,
Oh, wow.
and so we're like at the one part of the farm where you can't get cell reception, and we're sitting and
Mm,
talking. She's like, dude, I got this call. Need to make this call, and I'll and then we can continue. I said, all right. So, dude, she can't get cell reception. She has to get cell reception out at the road, right? Dude, she just like starts booking it. And she like the chick sprints like 200 yards to the road, makes her call and sprints back, like no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like why don't we? Why is she can just run on the spot, as opposed to I'll walk there,
hmm.
run like like she just took
She's
off.
got after it.
And she
Yeah,
got on a phone call. She was like talking.
Yeah, she had to have had some breath at the end of that, right?
Yeah.
yeah, and well, no, hold on. She wasn't talking while she was running. She had to run to the
To
Hmm.
take the
road
phone call. Yeah.
to get the reception to make the call, and then after she talked while she was at the road, then she ran back. Yeah, but she was just I never saw that before. Like I would expect she'd walk out to the road or maybe get in her car and drive there,
Totally.
right? And she just started booking it, man. Like yeah, no big deal. I'll just run there.
You're
Yeah.
hired, right?
For me, it's like if you're born in a capable body, we should be honoring that freaking privilege of being born in a capable body and like use it. Use
Do what
it.
you can with what you have, right? Because everyone's going to have different
Right.
limitations and things they've got going on. So,
Totally.
my grandfather was a quadriplegic,
And
and
he
he
was,
he did like workouts every day.
he
He was
didn't let
lifting himself
anything
out of his
stop him.
chair. He developed a mattress to sleep on his stomach. He never got a bed sore in his entire life.
For 40 plus
45
years,
years, he was a quadriplegic, and like he
it's incredible.
it was that kind of tenacity and grit of I want to do what I can with what I have. And he never was like, I'm just gonna sit here
And he ate so well.
he did.
He didn't drink alcohol.
Yeah,
He took care of
he
himself.
really did. He was good. I have a funny story about the farm drop off and how our
Our
vote,
farm drop?
how the vote has impacted our family. And Elizabeth, I actually haven't told you this. So
Scared.
so all right.
You think you know someone? Let's see here. What you...
I'm a suburban dad. So here we go. Honesty. You're gonna sue me, right? Elizabeth was on a vacation, so I had the kids. And one night I door dashed food. Okay.
Dun dun dun.
And
what's DoorDash food? What is that?
it's like a mobile delivery system where
Okay,
food
alright.
gets dropped off at your door, right?
I love that you don't even know what DoorDash is, Max.
And it
Was it
think
good?
farm match but for fast food, right?
The worst.
That's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
And our 3-year-old, when the food got dropped off at the front door, started dancing and jumping and yelling, "The farm is here! The farm is here!"
Oh man.
because she's so used to the farm order coming to our front door, and we get all the food, the fresh food, and the dairy, and the kombucha, and the yogurt and such. And our DoorDash order came to the front door, right, like in a plastic bag, and
It's the
she
opposite.
started cheering that the farm was here.
That's hilarious.
And she's like, "Daddy, we gotta go get the food. The farm's here."
Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to have like the farmers drop off the food at the drop points, and then have like someone go there and make all the home deliveries from there or something like that.
Well,
so funny.
anytime she sees like an Amazon-esque looking van down our street, even if it's not getting delivered to our house, she's like, "Farm order's here!" Because our farm order gets dropped off in this giant van.
It's so good.
And our kids are just like, and like all day on Tuesday is our drop day. All day we've got people coming to the house just picking up their stuff. It's all like very,
The impact on your kids, though, right? They're going to
they
grow
see
up.
it.
They're
Yeah.
going to grow up like I grew up. So hunting and processing my own meat was something that I grew up that was normal for me. So that was just normal.
Yeah, not normal
It was,
for me.
it was, hey, we have a meat grinder. What do you mean you can't grind your own meat? It was like, that's what we do. Like, you don't have a smoker? Like, how do you make your sausage? It was like, this is how I grew up. And
Yeah.
then, now my kids,
Next level.
they're like,
We have all that. And
when they move out someday, they're going to be like, all right, well, when I move somewhere, where's my farm going to be?
we just need to,
Right? That's going to be something that's in their head. That's going to be normal to them. It's going to be, I got to figure out where my farm is when I move out. Well,
maybe
I'd like to
we'll
think
have a
that we'll do that.
homestead and they'll be like, where's our dairy cow?
Fair.
That would be next level.
When Apple was when Jobs and Wozniak started Apple, that they actually had a third partner too, because they needed a tiebreaker in case they couldn't agree on things. But anyway, when they got going, it's like their whole premise was the future was that there was going to be personal computing in the future. People were going to have what was called a personal computer. So I was thinking like the future is like a personal farmer. Everyone, like what you're saying, like my children are going to be asking like when I move, like where's my farmer going to, how am I going to get my farmer, right?
Yeah.
So I think in a lot of ways that's the future is people are going to be seeking their personal farmer.
Yeah. Which makes sense. You have someone for everything else. You're like, who's cutting my hair? What's another example?
Mechanic for your auto.
Yeah, who's fixing my car?
Your accountant.
Your accountant. Yeah, or you can be, and that's not to say like you can never brush your own hair or give yourself a trim or balance your checkbook, but you have someone who's also helping you. So you can also grow some of your own food and butcher it, but then you're not, if you're producing everything, I don't know anyone who produces everything on their own, even people who have farms. So to have someone who you can say, this is the face behind who's putting the food on my table is really cool.
And there's benefits to being in community, right?
Yeah.
There used to be, Max, years ago, I used to collect, and it's still like a hobby of mine. I just don't drink anymore, because I haven't been drinking. I used to collect bourbon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't drink either. I'm committed to sobriety.
I used to collect bourbon, like historical bottles, hard to find bottles of bourbon. It was a very fun hobby, and I had a buddy that had a lot more time and resources to get these said bottles. But I hunted, and I used to always love the experience of like, I had taken a number of deer this year, and then him and I would meet up and I would give him like a cooler full of meat and he'd hand me like a couple bottles of bourbon. And it was like, this like arrangement we had where we could trade back and forth. And then I had those bottles on these like interweb communities of people that I could use as currency. It was a whole thing. So anyways, here we are.
It's your own little farm match
These communities of trading resources is always been enjoyable.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's the piece I love about Farm Match too, is like now I know the farmer, I know the people who run the like admin side of it. I know the people who come and pick up. I have conversations with them. It's just so cool. So even if it's not like, even if you're like, okay, I only have 10% of my grocery budget to dedicate to my local farm, whatever number you're starting with, just get in there for the connection. First of all, you're going to realize the produce tastes way better. You're going to realize raw milk changes your life. You're going to realize we don't always get meat from our farm because we do hunt and we buy meat from other places locally, but it's a fantastic option. And they have things like kombucha, which I don't want to take the time to make, even though I know I can.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to make everything.
You're not going to make everything.
Yeah.
And so it's so wonderful. Anyways, that's my plug for Farm Match.
We didn't even need to plug it. We've been plugging it.
We've been talking about it.
It is definitely like one of the best ways if you're trying to figure out a way to get close.
Resource.
Get into a farm situation.
Totally. So farmmatch.com is where they can find you. Where else can folks find you, Max?
I recently bought my own domain name, maxkane.com. So if you go to maxkane.com sometime in late June, you'll probably catch my website there.
Sweet.
I'm on LinkedIn. I don't do much on Facebook. I got I'm on YouTube. I make some YouTube videos. If anyone wants to see a cool YouTube video, I've got I talk about, I think it's like a 2 or 3 minute video about voting with your dollars and,
Mm.
dollar bills and 17 times the diameter of planet Earth. It's a really inspiring video. Um,
And that's at
yeah,
Max Kane.
yeah, just go to YouTube and search Max Kane. You'll find me.
Okay.
Wonderful.
And then and if you're interested in raw meat, I got some raw meat videos on there if you want to know more, or if you're a hater and you just want to find something to complain about, you can watch. Hey, leave a comment either way. It doesn't matter to me. Like, like if you want to like down talk me to everyone, that'd be, I would love that. Please do that. Like get my name out there. And
All press
but
is good press, right?
yeah. Well, yeah. I think if you're secure in what you do and you believe what you're doing and you know it's good, a good cause, then all
Yeah.
press is good press. Like
Sure.
if you're robbing a bank and you're doing something you don't want to be caught about, then maybe all press is bad, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
and unless you want to go to jail, I don't know. Who knows? There's like weird stuff going on, but yeah, for the most part, all press is good press. I go out and speak a lot. I'll be in at Pork Fest next in New Hampshire probably in a couple weeks. I got an event in Pennsylvania called Family Farm Days. I'll be at the Weston A. Price Conference in Kansas City this year.
Sweet.
So Farm Match sponsors a lot of these healthy food events around the country. So if you ever want to meet in person, I'd love to say hello. So if you're listening, just if you ever see a Farm Match booth at one of these events, come up and say hello.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you guys are on Instagram too. I think it's just
Yeah.
at
Oh yeah, we're on Instagram. Let's see,
Farm
Twitter. Well, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not familiar with all the social media platforms, but we're definitely spread
You're on them.
pretty
Yeah.
well.
Cool. We'll link those below in the show notes as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Sweet. Wonderful. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like any interview, I'm like laughing, I'm feeling emotional. I'm just like, it's so dynamic, but I love it because we talked about so many different things, but all things that I feel so passionately about. And I loved hearing your story, Max. So thank you for sharing that, being
Yeah,
vulnerable with us and
you're welcome, Liz.
and telling that. So
Yeah,
thank
if you
you.
guys ever want to come out to the farm or something, I'll probably have an event later this fall. I'd love to have you guys out if you ever
You
make it
know,
this way.
we're looking to do some traveling around the country pretty
Yeah.
soon. If I can convince Joe of it. So hit us up because we'll probably be into that.
Yeah. There's a good chance.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Max. This has been so great. And we look forward to chatting with you more.
I'm sure we'll talk again
Yeah,
soon.
likewise. All right, Joey. See you, Liz. Have a great day.
And with that, Max Kane has left the virtual chat.
He has left the virtual chat. Yeah, that was so good. I always feel bad because when I give people a timestamp, like, that will be about this long, we always blow right past it. Well, we were talking and I was like, man, we've covered so much. We've already got to be 45 minutes in. And I looked down at the recording and it was like 23 minutes. And I was like, this episode is jam packed.
Oh yeah.
Like, there was never, like, I just love.
There's some audiobooks that I listen to on like a higher speed to get them done quicker.
Don't
right?
listen to this
I
one.
would dial this one back, right? Like go to the 0.75, like less than 1%, the normal. Slow it down and listen to it twice because holy cow.
Yeah, Max is just such a dynamic character. Yeah, Farm Match has been in our lives for 7, almost 8 years now.
Mhm.
So it's just really this is one of those full circle moments where I'm like pinching myself, like, this platform I've used for my family to give them, it's the only way I would have been connected to this farm, to give them whole nourishing food, virtually changed the course of our middle daughter's life. I would say that's how impactful this raw milk discovery was for our family. And we just got to sit down and have a 2-hour conversation with the literal founder and hear his story behind it. And I hope that folks listening, like, also if you've been on Farm Match, like, this is super cool. But even if you've never heard of Farm Match, the stuff that Max shared was just so fantastic.
So if you're not dating your food currently,
That's the only part of the episode I was like, where are we going with this? Yeah.
you could do that.
Yeah, you can get on Farm Match.
Farmmatch.com. Check Max out. check out his YouTube videos of him eating raw meat, I'm guessing.
I can't. The raw meat thing is because I'm so happy you said that, because you're like, listen, poultry is the only category of meat.
And I wanted to bring it up because, man, it's so easy for someone to seem just like a Looney Tune for eating raw chicken. And
we actually know people in our life who eat raw chicken.
I do know some people that do it. So it didn't like rock my world. I did want to resonate with people though and say, currently in my life, I eat raw chicken. It's just, there's a textural thing for me. And if we really zoom out, it's like, all creatures get used to a normal, like we get used to a normal sense of how things are, right? And like if you have a pet that's used to eating a certain kind of food and you give them a different one, they're going to react to that food differently, whether it's something that they've always wanted, they love it, or it's different, they don't really like it that much, right? Like,
yeah.
Anyways, I not eating raw chicken just yet. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not really interested right now in it. Love Max to death, and I believe him, and I think there's a good chance I would be just fine if I ate raw chicken.
But
I'm not going to.
But I like,
not right now, at least.
Same. But I like what he said about, like, for him. Keep in mind, like, his history, his whole health journey.
He had some way different realities to deal with than I do.
That's key.
And there's, when we're talking about digestion and gut health and being able to extract nutrients to maximize performance and also recovery and healing and nutrition and nourishment, we're maximizing those sorts of things. We want to get the best results out of the investment we're making in the food that we're buying. And that's what he's on a mission to do. Right. Yeah. And we're over here. We're still learning. When I went to culinary school, I was learning what they taught me. And at that time, right, you can eat beef raw. And if anyone's like, no, you can't, it's like, well, it's commonly understood that you can.
Yeah.
Hey, you can eat fish raw. Okay, it's commonly understood that you can.
Shellfish, even.
You can eat shellfish raw.
Scallops was surprising to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we eat raw oysters all the time. Raw oysters.
Oh, that's true.
Raw clams.
That's true.
We're eating. You can eat raw like shrimp. All this stuff is like good to go, right? And then you look at the temperatures that you eat different meats on a regular basis. You can go to a mass production restaurant and order beef cooked rare, right? Medium rare is like 129 to like 133 degrees on the center. Okay. That means that rare is less than that. I don't have the specifics for it. Let's guess 122 degrees. Okay. Let's guess 122 degrees would be the beef. That is like, what, 20 degrees more than what that, or 23 degrees more, 24 degrees more than what that was when it was breathing. Like, we're not talking anything extreme.
Yeah,
here.
You're right.
We're not talking about anything extreme. So the inside of that meat is raw. I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean,
all I can hear is Gordon Ramsay, but yeah.
Raw. Anyways, so the reality is that a lot of the stuff we've been doing, chicken is this weird one that we haven't gotten there just yet.
Because the salmonella. Yeah,
and
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Pork used to be that way.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You had to cook pork all the way through, and nowadays it's okay if pork
changed their tune a bit. Anyways.
Find Max, check him out. If you enjoyed this episode, you can look us up. We have things going on.
Yeah. You can comment on YouTube, because we're on YouTube now. You can leave a review or rating of the podcast, like Max. If you want to send hate, you're welcome to.
Yeah.
If you want to, we actually had someone leave a comment on our YouTube with some audio visual suggestions. That was really helpful. So we were like, great, we're going to get a better camera, which we haven't done yet. But like we read those things. Totally. We take them seriously. And, we're 71 episodes into this thing?
We're doing it.
We're brand new. Like 71 seems like a milestone, but we're brand new. We're in this for the long game. So please leave your comment, review, your rating, however you want to express yourself. We're into it. We're welcoming that. And yeah, you can find us in other avenues too. Homegrowneducation.org. We now have all digital resources. Everything is available for $24. So meal plans for breakfast and for dinner, kids' nutritional resources, curriculum, coloring books, like it's all in there.
If you need a little caffeine kick to be able to stick with a conversation like we just had, I did. I had one.
I didn't have any caffeine yet.
I finished my caffeine. as we were talking.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying the
Honduras.
I'm on the Honduras lately.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth, that's for sure. But we sell things for you to cast your vote.
This is an empty bag.
Well, we finished it.
We did, yeah. That's true. Yeah, you can cast your vote with us.
Cast your vote.
About that.
And we're going to continue working towards providing options for you to continue casting your vote well, right? And man, Farm Match is an inspiration. Like that's kind of the stuff that we're working towards, right? So we want the farmers and people that are creating awesome products that are good for you and good for the environment and good for people, like the coffee that we sell.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there's a farmer behind that.
There's a farmer behind this. I can't pronounce his name really well, except for his last name, Primavera. He's doing great things in Brazil, doing great things, Joel and Delmer in Honduras. They're making great coffee. They're doing shade grown, right? These are people that have little small operations.
You can see photos on our website of what their little farm looks like. And yeah, this is specialty grade coffee. It's a different level than what you're going to get at Starbucks or McDonald's or even in the Kroger aisle, right?
You could call this coffee a couple different things. You could call it third wave.
Third wave? What is that?
Have you heard of third wave?
No.
All right. Waves. Okay, let's talk about the waves. Different waves of coffee being introduced to society. Okay. So think of it like wave one, right? Like an attack almost is how I see it.
Okay.
But I'm
You always go military.
I
All
got
right.
to. So wave one would be you're having coffee at a diner, your Folgers, your mass production of coffee. People want coffee now, right?
Okay.
Wave two. Wave two is now coffee's an experience, and we're going to roast it differently, and we're going to package it for sale. Maybe you buy whole bean, maybe it's French press. This is like your Starbucks, your Dunkin' Donuts, your
Dude,
lattes,
I used to buy the whole bean at Dunkin' Donuts.
your cappuccinos that are mass produced. And then there's wave three.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are today. That is the highest wave currently. That is the most premium wave, right? Currently.
Did you make all this up?
No, this is legit.
Where did you hear this?
All over.
What?
Waves, third wave coffee.
I've never
Please
heard
comment.
about the waves.
Please comment and help me. So if you're watching or listening to this, go tell Elizabeth.
Or DM me because I get DMs all the time. Please tell me.
And say, yo, I've heard of third wave because I'm sounding kind of crazy right now.
Oh, I like this term.
But third wave coffee.
I'm gonna go update the website.
Yeah, it is this now. Now we're really focusing less on only not just the experience of being in a shop and the lattes and the sugar and the cream and all that, but now we're looking at how can we have the most premium quality bean with a very specific intentional roasting method, as opposed to mass production, burn all the beans, send them all out, make it happen, right? And that's what this is. So this is a third wave coffee. This is a top of the top premium quality. You're going to open your bag of Haselmayer Goods coffee and the smell of it's going to rock your world.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like your Starbucks coffee. It is a different experience. If you're looking to up your coffee game, right? The two things I recommend. One, you need better beans.
Yeah.
Or you need better coffee. So third wave coffee is just different. Number two, if you grind them yourself, getting a burr grinder, those are the top two things you can do to improve your coffee game.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we're getting into pour overs, espresso machines, that kind of stuff. And it starts to get a little niche, a little bit more hobby oriented.
Yeah.
However, coffee, I would say, and I'm stuck on this coffee thing just because I've been thinking about it, but just like we were talking about staying in the kitchen is like viewed as this, well, look at the Keurig. The Keurig is a regression in the coffee world.
Thank you for saying that because I
regression.
agree.
It is moving back to wave one.
I'll have people tell me they bought an espresso machine, and I'm seriously, no hate to anyone who has also said this, but they'll be like, I bought an espresso machine, and then they tell me it's like an Nespresso or something, and I'm like, so you're not like packing thing, and we're taking some of the art out of it.
And that's again, you like your coffee how you like your coffee, no judgment, but wave 3 coffee is very distinctly different than wave 1. Okay. Anyways, HaselmayerGoods.com, shoptheh.com, both of those will get you there. And you can find things like coffee, tea. We got tea.
certified organic, certified fair trade tea, which is important in the tea industry. We also have large soap, which again, there's a farmer behind that. There's a soap maker behind that. What else do we have? Sourdough kits, which there's a maker behind that.
So check it out. We're making these proofing baskets, and I was over at a friend's house with a group of people yesterday, and a buddy was asking me like, "Hey man, how are things with the shop?" And I was like, man, it's so fun, learning a lot, making mistakes, having wins, all of it. It's just right, it's business. And he's like, well, what would you say is the number one product you have right now? I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, what do you think sells the best? And I was like, well, we have this really innovative proofing basket for sourdough bread, and it helps shape dough. This person isn't in the game, so they're not making sourdough. So I had to kind of explain it a little bit more to the best of my ability. And they said, well, why would I want that one? And I said, well, and then there was a person in the room that is making sourdough.
Ooh.
Right. And she said, I have a Bannatyne right here, and pulls it out of her pantry. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks basically like this. I was like, except that, it's all fabric, and you can wash it and let it air dry if you like. I was like, and also it's naturally non-sticking because it's a fabric rather than being this like kind of like wicker or wood material. It doesn't splinter. I was like, it's not going to like get moldy. You don't have to like scrub it out with a brush. And this lady was looking at me. She's like, wait a minute, you make something like that? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's all the pain points.
And so if you're in the sourdough game, the proofing baskets that we're selling, I mean, and I'm almost, we've talked about this as a team at Haselmayer Goods. Like, it's almost like we don't need to promote these. Right now, we can't produce enough of them. I mean, we're talking like the lifespan of another production cycle of the proofing baskets has like a week. So if you want a proofing basket and you're hearing this and you see them available for sale.
It takes a month to get our next order in.
Yeah, you just
we have Max.
They will sell out. They will sell out. So buy them and get them before they do. But if they do sell out, reach out to us, ask when the next shipment's coming. We'll let you know.
They're currently in stock as of this episode recording. I'm not sure when we're releasing this episode, but they're currently in stock.
Yeah, today is Friday the 9th.
A quick tip though, if you do go to our website and see they're out of stock, just wait for the next month around like day 5 to 10.
Yeah,
early to mid month, and they'll be restocked.
They'll be restocked.
Because we're getting shipments every month, but our producer can only produce so much because these are handmade in the United States and all those things.
Shoptheh.com. Get yourself some. Cast your vote. Let's just start saying that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Shoptheh.com. Cast your vote, and we're trying to create a trustworthy, naturally minded, and focused shopping experience. So that's what we got going on there. You can find Elizabeth and myself on Instagram so that you can tell us that you've heard of Third Wave Coffee. I'm at Joey Haselmayer. Elizabeth, or Liz, is at Liz Haselmayer. We're at collectively, and I guess majority Elizabeth.
Yeah, you're not really on the account, but
Homegrown _education. And until next time, that's a wrap.